Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the show today. This is Night Owls, and we're going to be getting into some fun. I kept it light and hearted and fun today. So we have a lot of actual fun, goofy things to talk about, which is good. Hopefully, you guys have had yourselves a good week. I had my weekend was pretty good. I'm busy as usual, but I do get a day off. I get Saturday off sometimes too, but I do usually always get Sunday off. But what did I do this weekend? I stayed home on my day off. I stayed home, and you know what I did, Ben? Would you like to know what I did? Ben's,
I'm dying to know. I'm
I
dying to
know,
know what you did.
I know you are. I took your advice, sir, and
Oh, what did you
I played City of Heroes again.
do? Ooh.
Ooh, yes, and
Tell me more. Tell me more.
well, dude, first of all, the game still looks great. I was
You know,
surprised how good it looks, actually, after all this
when
time.
when you yeah, when you jack up the graphics and kudos to the Homecoming team for adding 64-bit support and adding more native support for more up-to-date graphics processors and stuff. Like when you jack up the graphics, it kind of holds up.
It
It's
does,
kind of
dude.
crazy.
I got everything on Ultra, and
Yeah.
I got a really good video card, so I can handle that. And it looks really good. And I I've been trying to put my finger on why is it better than all the stuff that came after it? Because same group of guys went and made Champions Online, right? Same group of guys went and made DC Online, right? Same group of guys. But why is City of Heroes the lightning in bottle and the other two aren't? I mean, Champions has got its good points, of course. DC Online has its the combat is probably is certainly superior. But City of Heroes, man, it's just better, and I don't know why. Can you put your because it's a truthful statement I just made. Why is
Yeah.
it better, dude? Why? Because
Well,
it's
so I
old.
got a couple of reasons. It is an older game, right? The ones you've mentioned, they have a bit quicker pace combat, right?
Sure.
City of Heroes is the older, like, hit my power, wait for it to go through the animation. It's not as action oriented, right? It's
No,
more of a classic MMO,
it
like
is.
back in the old EQ days and stuff like that, right? I think there's like a couple factors. One, the character creator is second to none. It is an amazing character creator. So many options, so many combinations that you can adjust. Not just your clothing, but color combinations, patterns,
Yeah.
height of your
Champions is better
characters.
though.
Um, in some ways, I think so, but I still think there's a degree of better versatility for City of Heroes. I know what you're saying, but I still think the options available in City of Heroes are more practical to play with than some of the other ones in Champions Online.
Yeah, it
But
takes more
along
more fiddling. That's true.
right, and so the other thing is the the archetypal system. You're playing what is essentially a class system, which a lot of people didn't like from a they wanted heroes to be more free form. However, they did it in a very logical fashion to where it makes sense from like a superhero archetypal system. So, and then within that, the power selections
Yeah.
are diverse enough that, like, so for instance, in DC Universe Online, right, it was really hard to make like a superhero, like a Superman type character, because for like your
It's true.
defensive ability, they wanted it to be elemental in nature, right? So like you had to take like fire powers or earth powers, and that never felt very
No, it
satisfying
doesn't.
from a
And
hero creation perspective.
it's their action fighting system that pushed them in that corner.
Right.
Yeah.
So that means that like it's harder to create the character you match in your head. Whereas with City of Heroes, because they have a wider variety of powers with the archetypal system, and you can repaint the powers. So like flame, you can have like fire powers, but it can be like black fire, Or you can have like I made. So here's a great example. I made a vampire character, right? That was going to be like almost like a bloodbender, but I could do that because I took water powers and I repainted them as a dark red, and it
Yeah.
looked sick as fuck,
Yeah.
right?
That's true. Yeah.
And and that's the power of the system. That in City of Heroes you can make what's in your head, I think, better than you can in those other two systems. I think you can with Champions Online, but it takes a lot more fucking around with the system
It
to get it
takes
where
a
you
lot
want.
longer. But in the end though, you can get a better result. You can. It's just a lot more fiddly. It's true.
It's not as approachable is the problem, and I
That's
think
true.
City of Heroes is very approachable, and that's its greatest power at its core.
I agree with what you're saying, but I think it's even deeper. I feel I don't know why, but City of Heroes makes you work for it. The other ones are kind of taking that RPG, modern RPG idea where they kind of do so much for you. You got you can teleport
Oh
back to
yeah,
the Ren
yeah,
Center or something like that. Whereas
yeah.
City of Heroes makes you earn it, and on
Yeah.
top of it, I just feel that the characters and the stories are more involved, more visceral. Even it's all text based, right? And the interactions, I think it's more down to earth, oddly enough, even though we're talking about superheroes. There's so many little things that game just kicks ass on. I spent several
Totally.
hours last night playing the game, and I was like, oh man, I was in heaven, man. It's still, and how old is that damn game, dude? 18 years?
Something like that, 15, 18, something like that. Yeah, it's an older game, and you know what? I still play it. I have this like god level summoner as my primary, who's he's a hero, but he summons demons and he has thermal powers. And let me tell you, like my character is gone through all the deity level, like archetypal stuff. Like it's very satisfying because you do feel like you go through a more natural, like comic book curve to where you start and you're fighting like thugs on the streets, and by the time you're at this like end tier, you're like literally fighting time gods,
Yeah,
right?
the
So
progression
it
is better. You're right. You're right.
it feels earned. It feels earned, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So,
because think of
um, and
Champions Online Endgame. You're in some weird city with some goofy voodoo magic gods or something. It just doesn't feel the same. It's more epic. It is more epic. That is true. Just real quick though, Thundero, it looks like you're trying to talk, but I'm not hearing anything. Could we get a little bit of love from Thundero here?
There we go. There we go. Better? Can you
Oh,
hear me
there it
now?
is. There he is. There he is.
Here.
Okay.
We'll switch mic. We'll go to the good mic. Hang on.
Yeah. Well, because I wasn't sure whether you were commenting or just staying out of the conversation. Um,
No, I only played those games. I mean, I played them a long time ago, but I barely remember them. I've had access to get the fan remake for a long time. I've just never utilized it. Um, but I do remember enjoying them. It was just a very long time ago. I played them when they first came out, and I'd probably check them out again. Now, DC Universe Online, I've played a lot of that.
sure.
And the only real draw that has for me is I really like the cities there. I just like to fly around in like Metropolis or whatever. It's just fun to do.
They are
And the
nice.
action
Yeah,
combat is while very limited and limiting, it's so smooth. It's like
it
butter.
is. No, it's a good combat system. Champions could use that. I mean, City of Heroes could use that kind of upgrade a little bit. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Just smooth it out, right? Smooth out which would take a lot of work. Something these people probably aren't going to do. But smooth it out as much as possible. Make the animations nice and fluid, like an action RPG. One of the reasons why I think there's been like a resurgence of action RPGs, especially in the mainstream, is because the combat has became so stale in so many games for so long.
right.
Like Skyrim. Skyrim's combat sucks. It's not fun. It's the worst part of the whole game. That's why there's whole like a dozen different overhauls for it to try and make it more interesting.
Yeah,
And it was like the RPG for a very long time. Everything else was in its shadow. And then you had a game like Witcher 3 come out, and you had all the Dark Souls games, and now you have Elden Ring, and they're just a massive leap forward. I don't know if we'll ever see that in an MMO, especially not a superhero one, because for some reason people seem very reluctant to make them. Which is weird with the MCU. You think that would have been the perfect time for the crossover, but
It
whatever.
is, which kind of brings me to an important point. I mean, the best MMOs we're getting are coming out of Korea and China. I mean,
Yeah.
Moonlight Blade is insane, but you can't
Mhm.
really play that game unless you can read the Chinese,
Right.
right? And understand. I
Well,
mean, I got a step ahead on the rest of you guys, but that's not an easy thing for me to do. It
Hmm.
takes time.
can I offer an alternative opinion? I think there are decent action MMOs out there. They're just of a different genre, right? So, for instance, Destiny and Destiny 2, those are more
Hmm.
action oriented, right? And those are MMOs. I'm actually playing Division 2 right now. That's very action oriented, and that's a really fun MMO.
Well, I go with
And
that. The Destiny, I didn't play 2. Destiny 1 sucked balls, dude.
there's a lot of people out there who really enjoyed it. It never grabbed me as much. I do like the Division games, but I was never that much of a Destiny. Guild Wars 2,
Oh,
very
great game.
action oriented.
Great game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And that's very much an action game, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, here
so they're out there. They're out there.
well, play on the point that Thunder just said though, Ben, because I mean, during this legendary run of the MCU, which seems to be petering out now, but it went for a good 12 years, right? Why during that time did we not see some badass epic superhero game come out? Why didn't we? I mean, because you would think that's hit it while it's hot, right?
Oh, I think that's because, Marvel's too much of contracting their games out to other companies who it's a matter for you putting trust in, and I don't think they've always put the trust in the right people. So,
Hmm.
I mean, we saw like a lot of really good like Lego Marvel games. They put a lot of, they did a lot of like cell phone games. They're all kind of shitty. They had that Avengers game which had potential, but it just like didn't have enough follow through.
Yeah.
And so, like one thing I really want them to do I've been playing Division 2 for a couple of days. I'm really enjoying it, and as I'm playing it and I'm seeing the potential, I'm like, why the fuck haven't they done like a Mass Effect MMO like this? Because it would be
Yeah,
perfect for this type of style of game,
it would be,
right?
wouldn't it?
But
Yeah.
BioWare just can't get their thumbs out their asses, right? The best they've done is like just fucking make a remake of their three greatest games, right? They can't make a fucking new version to save their asses,
Well, they have the
right?
EA
And so,
problem, right?
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and so, but my point is that I think the problem is that Marvel doesn't have their own like gaming division. They just contract it out to other people, and they put too much faith in other companies to do good for them,
And
right?
they
And
and they made
so
bad
it's been a
choices.
problem.
Yeah.
You're right.
No, that's fair. Well,
I think
the
another problem a lot of these MMOs have, and this is problem is not getting any better and probably never will, is most of them now especially are designed to be retention mechanic games or addiction games, whatever you want to call it, that they're designed to constantly get you playing, right? For whatever reason,
and
whether it's you
spend
have a
that
list
money.
of chores or whatever, yeah, and spend money. And I understand the incentive, obviously, from the company's perspective to do that, but man, some people can fall into that and just love it and do it and do it and do it, I guess, but I'm not one of those people. I really we need almost a renaissance in game development again, and it needs to be about the damn games and about the player.
Well,
Yeah.
you are 1,000% correct. So going back to like why we're playing City of Heroes again. So the thing is like this isn't like it's completely free, right? This is
Yeah.
run by the fans for the love of the fans. There's no cost to play, and as such, there's no microtransactions. You can just make an account, log on, and play to your heart's content, right?
Yeah.
So there's
Yep.
nothing constantly shining in your face saying like, "Oh, this week we have a deal on new spandex options for you and shit like that," right?
That's right.
And so, and part of the reason they can do that is because NCSoft, it's kind of into the courts right now, but like NCSoft basically didn't do anything with the City of Heroes IP for so long that It's basically a shelved and abandoned IP, so they can't actually take them to court. But the problem is that like the Homecoming team can't like make money off of it, which is the unfortunate thing. Because I think what they could do is, if they were allowed to, they could just set up like a Patreon of like, just donate whatever you want. You can play, play to your heart's content. They would actually make I think a butt fuck ton of money, right? That would
They probably
take it
would,
back
yeah.
to sort of yeah. I mean, so basically once a month they open up donations to pay for their server costs. So they never want to make more than what is needed to just run the game, and they immediately pay for server costs within like the first like 10 minutes of opening up donations to just cover regular server costs, like they cost of the server, cost of their internet provider, cost of their DNS, right? And it's a real shame too, because they could make money. Like let them, like, I would love to see them develop the game more, make changes, do updates
Yeah.
and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Well,
And yeah,
well, no, that's one of the things that was really great about Cryptic, right? When they were ahead the game and they were pushing the game, they were
right.
constantly developing, constantly updating. It was a constant love fest coming toward the players, right? And this is back in the day where we didn't have any kind of microtransactions that didn't exist at that time. So they're just is a monthly service. You pay your $10, I think it was, and
Yeah,
that's their monetary system. And it was wonderful. So, I'm not going to get into an NC Soft conversation because I might murder somebody. But
yeah,
yeah, what I will say is that these guys are in a fortunate position because, in all honesty, they don't need to do anything. The complete code that is in there is freaking pristine, and it has so much content that they don't really need to do anything else. Now, would I like to see them add like little events, ongoing events, or things like that to just kind of put a little bit more love in there? I would. It would be cool, but they don't need to.
they
So,
do,
yeah,
they do,
well, yeah, but you know
and
what I
they've
mean.
made
It's more development
yeah,
based
yeah,
stuff where it takes money.
yeah, yeah.
Like maybe a remastering of it to kind of bring up the graphics even more, like a little bit of polygon redevelopment. But but the thing with it is though, my question is this, and I don't know if either one of you have the answer, but the question is this: how the hell did the Victory guys, or what's their name again, Ben?
Homecoming.
Homecoming, yeah, because it's called. I'm playing City of Heroes Victory.
Oh, okay. It was the Homecoming team who I think developed the first like substantial like full code for running, because it's out there publicly. You can run a private City of Heroes server,
Oh,
right?
so I should go find the Homecoming one. Okay, but either way,
Well,
my question is this though: how in the hell did they get the code, dude? Because they got the whole code, they got
it was given,
everything.
it was given to them by the devs. It's actually like it's more controversial than that. They actually got the original like databases, right? Like they were given not just like the entire code for running the server, they were given the original databases with all of the original character data, and they had to make a decision like, okay, we're going to scrap that because that's like more PII than we want to have access to. But they were given everything,
Yeah,
because and we don't know which cryptic, or we don't know who gave it to them, but like obviously the devs were like super pissed because like this game that they worked their hearts off, NCSoft is like, nah, fuck it, we want everyone to play our other game, so we're going to kill this,
which no
right?
one did, by
And
the
so,
way.
no one did.
Yeah.
Not a fucking soul. It was awful.
So
So,
why isn't
yeah,
NCSoft seeing what's going on? Why don't they just release it themselves and make some money off it? What's going on?
that is the really good question. And so this actually gets into some. It gets complicated because of laws around abandoned intellectual property, right? And so the question becomes, um, is but so there's laws about your intellectual property. You have to use your intellectual property on a regular basis, and if you don't, it becomes abandoned and you can slip into public domain. So the problem that NCSoft did was they shelved City of Heroes for possibly too long, and they didn't do anything with it, right? And so because of that, like I think it's like depending on where you are. I think it's like somewhere between 3 to 5 years that it becomes like de facto public domain if you abandon an IP. That means if you're not publishing stuff with it, it's not putting it into the the intellectual public sphere for whatever consumption, right? And so this is what became really controversial because the question became, could NCSoft do anything if they wanted to? Because the genie's out of the bottle, right? So, and there's too much, I think, ill will against NCSoft. Like, would people trust going back to City of Heroes if it was run by NCSoft? Probably not. And there's tons of private like server communities out there now because
Sure.
again, all of the information is public. It is source code, right? And so you could run get us a private like City of Heroes server for the night owls, right? It's pretty easy to get up and running. So, like, what do you do about that, right? Now,
Right.
Homecoming is sort of considered the de facto one. Like, that's considered the most popular, the new like default one. Other people have other ones up, but it's the most popular one. It's the most populated one out of all the others out there, right?
Right.
So Homecoming has announced that they're talking to NCSoft about purchasing the IP because they're like, we want to do stuff with it. We're the ones who set up the first like private servers. They've done a lot of development of it, so they've added new powers. They've added, they've done changes to the powers to rebalance them. They've added new clothing options and new stuff like that. And they're like, we want to be in this business. And so I've heard that they've been in negotiation with NCSoft to buy the intellectual property, even though they kind of don't have to. But the problem is like NCSoft is being kind of crazy. They're like, we want $50 million for this, and like nobody thinks it's worth that much money.
Of course
It
not.
could be, it could be if you resuscitated it,
Sure.
but as it is right now,
50
it's
million
not,
into it.
right?
Yeah, it takes money
Yeah.
to make money. Yeah, no, NCSoft are absolute dicks. The stupid Koreans. Stupid Koreans. I said it. There we go.
Now.
But yeah, whatever. It is a debacle. But then again, I'm sorry this conversation is going so far in this direction, Ben. Well, Thundero, sorry. I have to ask the question: where does that leave City of Titans, Ship of Heroes, and I can't remember the other one's name?
Yeah, so they kind of get left in the dust because they were trying to like recreate it, but like, what's the purpose of recreating it if the original's out now,
Hmm.
right? So I don't know. It's a good question. Because first of all, like none of them were in any kind of a completionist state. Like none of them were even in an alpha state. They were
No.
very early on, and it's tough because it's a hard development cycle. There's a lot to do. So I don't know. I think they're probably done, right? Because
Yeah,
people are already playing City of Heroes. It's like you said, it's still very playable. It's still very enjoyable. It hits all the good nostalgia stuff, and I
it's
think
great.
anyone who tried to, yeah, if anyone tried to recreate it now, I think you would just be stuck in a very bad position of being compared to City of Heroes. And like we said, even major AAA titles that released after it have a hard time being compared to it.
Right, because
If
they're
like,
not as good. Plain and simply, they're not as
yeah,
good. Yeah, they're just not.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
If people don't have as much fun playing DC Adventures as they have playing City of Heroes, what hope do these guys have of overcoming that hurdle, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but ooh, it would be tough.
Well, I was playing Champions yesterday, and I was trying to level up a character going through the grind, and
Right,
as you do. But I was like, because that game, you can see the same developers made it. You can see,
right.
and but it's just the interaction with the NPCs and the storylines just aren't. They're just not as compelling or gripping as all at all. And I was like, "Ugh, if I'm gonna grind, maybe I should do what Ben said and just go try this City of Heroes and see what it's like." So I downloaded it. It took what, a minute or two.
Yeah,
And
it goes really fast.
yeah, because the modern world. And I jumped on and immediately had a smile on my face immediately. And City of Heroes is mega grindy, right? But I just instantly, and I had to remember. It took me a while to remember how to shut the goddamn game off because they don't even have the escape key release, right? It's so old. You actually had to go into the menu and choose the exit button. I had forgotten.
Yeah.
But oh my god, dude, it's just so much better. And I hopefully they'll work it out. To be fair with the other ones, I think Ship of Heroes was further along than the other two, but Titan City or whatever they're calling it, it looks good though. It's a good looking game. And if they came out with that, I would support them. But they just won't pull that damn trigger, dude. They won't do it because it looks good. Actually played Ship of Heroes. They had a little alpha type of thing you could play, and it's it's nowhere. It's not finished, but I don't know. It's such a weird debacle. I don't understand why companies would leave money on the floor. It's on
No,
the
it's
table.
it's really kind of crazy because you think about it. How much? Because like NCSoft could have left City of Heroes up running this entire time and
Sure.
just like charged, $10 a month, something like that. Not a crazy amount, and they could have not had like a ton of developers, but enough developers to keep fresh content going, new powers, new issues as they call them, and
Right.
they probably would have still been making decent bank off of it, right?
Right,
I'm
because
not saying they're making 100, yeah, but
well,
still making money.
it's profitable. It was
Right.
profitable. It's a game that was
It was
canceled that
always
was
profitable.
making money. It was profitable. They could have just
Yeah.
left it be. The reason NCSoft shut it down was because they didn't want competing IPs to the new thing they're releasing. I can't remember what the freaking game was that they released. Can you?
Oh, yeah, it was some sci-fi game. I think Richard Garriott was involved in some form or fashion, but it was not good. It was awful. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
no.
got yeah. I mean, it was closed and canceled. I think within 2 years of being released, or a year or something like that. It did not last very long.
Tabula
Like,
Rasa. That's what it was.
yeah, that's what it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
Tabula Rasa.
And
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
did play it because Gary was involved, and it had potential. I was kind of surprised to get shelved so quickly. But I do remember watching a documentary on the kerfuffle of that. But it's just whatever. You can go play it, so go play it. Because the thing is, like I said, City of Heroes is polished and finished. There's content in there for literally years, so
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't need any more development. It doesn't. Just go play the game. It works.
It has
So
my favorite MMO class. This like the mastermind. No other game has come close to creating a class like that, and that is my favorite class. No
yeah.
other no other game has it.
Um,
So
I've seen a couple of fantasy ones that did pretty good job, but you're talking specifically the mastermind as in the superhero, and yeah, you're right. But anyway, I'm going to move on from this conversation. But I was a happy boy. Let's just say that. And I'm gonna
yeah,
and I'm back to the grind, Ben. I'm back to the grind. I got to go download the homecoming, I guess, instead of the victory one I have, just so I can be with more people. Because I did notice it was a little bit thin. But yeah, either way, it doesn't matter. It's a functioning code. Let's go ahead and get into it. And yeah, hello Roger and Pixel and Dave. Oh, by the way, Roger, I noticed that in the Discord you put down the movie The Terror for people to watch. And I was like, oh, that's nice. That was a very interesting little movie, The Terror. This is from 1960 something, early 60s, I think. This is back when Roger Corman was actually trying to make normal movies and
yeah.
not the Corman movies. And actually, Coppola was involved in the making of that movie, by the way. But that's an interesting little movie. It's basically when Boris Karloff is already walking dead, so that's a negative. But it does have a young Jack Nicholson playing Lieutenant Duvalier in it. And it's back when Corman was trying to do that. Well, it's not Edgar, it's Poe-esque, but when he was trying to do his Edgar Allan Poe type of movies. Um, yeah, check that out, man. That's not a bad movie at all. Yeah,
I agree. It's a very good movie.
yeah. I actually checked the rating on it, and it's sitting at a 5 on the IMDb. And I was like, what? That's definitely higher than a 5, dude.
A
Uh,
5.
Yeah, that's kind of silly. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. Now, the first thing I say, I think this is from Thundero.
It
But
is.
I was like, yes, you go, Mister.
That's
Uh,
right.
this is Tom Brown, and Mr. Brown has single-handedly saved 1,200 species of apples.
That's good, man.
That's a
That's
good
good, man.
man. That is
It's a
awesome.
modern day Johnny Appleseed right there. Tommy Appleseed. That's
Well,
him. We found him.
yeah, because most Americans think of, we got three kind of apples, four maybe. But of course, you go to Britain, there's thousands of them, right?
Mhm.
And some of them certainly brought their way over to America. So good on this dude, man. I thought this was the nicest little thing I'd seen in quite a while. That's just a dude doing good for the world, man.
That's right. There's a lot of people. This guy obviously has been focusing on apples, but there's people trying to save the chestnut because the American chestnut is basically extinct, the actual one.
Really?
And there's a big move. Yeah, there was a big blight that happened to it about 100 years ago and wiped out almost all the trees. And now, whenever new ones pop up or try to grow, they get blighted and pretty much die almost instantaneously.
Yeah.
There's still a few out there that are, relatively pristine, but they're not enough for, a species basically.
Hmm.
And but there's been people trying to save them and trying to resurrect them. And this guy was doing it with apples, and I just thought it was great that somebody was successful because these attempts at resurrecting the American chestnut have been, eh, they're trying. They're trying, but that blight, whatever it is, I think it came from China. They think it came from China,
Of
has
course it did.
just decimated the chestnut population. Because there was a time before any of us were born, but there was a time when chestnuts were like they were everywhere along the east, especially
Mhm.
that they were the chestnut trees and things. They were a staple of American life. And then that blight happened. I think it was in the 30s, and just over the next 20 years, the whole pretty much right down the whole coast just wiped them out.
Well, they do
Um,
roast by the fire.
yep, yep.
Yes. And I
Now,
think,
now you can still get chestnuts, obviously, but they're not the same. Like these chestnuts were way bigger, and the trees grew or produced way more because the actual American chestnut tree is humongous. It's a very big tree, and it produces a ton more nuts comparatively than what we have now from the other breeds that have are resistant to the blight.
right. Well, I don't know if it was an actual original, but my grandmother did have a giant chestnut tree in the yard, and I had to go and collect them.
Oh yeah.
Even though I can't stand eating them. And I hate that damn song because my name is Chester. So I get when I was in elementary school, chestnuts, it was Chester's nuts. All right, fine. But the worst was anytime someone would see a bee, buzz bee. I get that a lot too. I got that
Yeah,
a lot.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, my last name rhymes with Oscar Mayer, so you can just imagine
sure. Kids are
what
kids.
I was subjected to as a child.
Well, I mean, Ben's the worst. He's a cabbage.
Yeah,
Yeah, cabbage farmer.
Yep, cabbage. But anyway, this is awesome and good for these people that are doing these kind of things. And of course, this conversation is very broad. There's people trying to revitalize, maintain, keep all kinds of wild things. It's not just
that's
chestnuts
it.
and apples. But I bet you these people don't spend much time on Twitter.
No, I bet you they're not avid social media users. I just
Yeah,
have a feeling.
kind of busy. That's the thing I've
Yeah.
noticed about these SNS stuff. Yeah, 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 it seems people have a lot of free time. I don't understand where they're getting this free time because I ain't got no goddamn free time, Ben.
No, proper working people don't have free time.
Yeah. Well, I guess I do. I am sitting here in my free time, I suppose. But I've scheduled it. Does that count? Anyway.
No,
I'm not
that's
even.
literally the opposite of free time.
I'm literally driving as we're doing this, so I don't have free time either.
Mm. But whatever. The let them burn, I guess, because they're really good at that. Anyway, let's move on. This is a really cool thing, man. I support it. That's awesome, dude. Another
Yeah,
thing I took from the chat. I'm gonna play this. I'm just gonna play it. So
yeah,
listen because you guys know that me personally, I'm not anywhere near as involved in my my study as I probably would want to be.
Mm.
But I do keep a foot in the door. I've been that foot's been in the door for over 20 years. I do translate for the Sumerian project. I've been doing that, like I said, for over 20 years. So at least I do something with it. I do something with it. But this is talking about science and the concept of science. And one of the things before I play this, I'll give a little bit of a primer. You got to understand something. For the past 100 years, we have not really had science. Now,
Hmm.
what you do have is you have engineers, you see, and engineers
Hmm.
just go out and get stuff made, and the science is far less important than the actual mechanical function, right?
Hmm.
For the past 100 years, you've had engineers just making electrical things left and right and not caring what science has to say about it. But science itself, we haven't had it, and the reason for that is because the the American government, for some reason, decided to create a poster child by the name of Albert Einstein.
Mm.
I'm not going to sit here and bang on Einstein, even though everything he said, including E equals MC squared, has been proven wrong,
Mhm.
because the dude had integrity. Because he did say, if my things are proven not to be correct, well, they're not correct, and we need to keep searching. He was honest about it. The problem
Yep.
is we don't have many real scientists today. What we have are students worshiping at the
Mm.
master's feet is what we have, and
Acolytes.
they're acolytes, and it's a real problem. The good thing is in the past, well, I'd say 12, 15 years or so, we've had a real big push, and it did start back in the city 60s with Velikovsky, really, but
Mm.
you've had this real push for people doing real science, and particularly in the plasma science fields. And the thing that they're putting forward theories, they're going into laboratory and proving them or disproving them, right? One way or the
Yep.
other. And by in the process of doing that, they've started to learn a lot of things, and we're seeing a lot more physicists, gravity physicists, coming over to the plasma physics because, well, they're making headway, right? And that's good because that's what we want. We want to keep doing real science. But the problem with Einstein, it's not even his fault. It's not his fault. It's the propagandists in the American government. Because keep in mind, this is a German Jew that they used as a propaganda tool against the Germans, right?
Yep.
But Albert Einstein, the problem with it is all his theories that he put forward basically took away the need for science, because what he's basically saying is time has no accounting beyond. You basically tried to base time upon a frickin' clock. I mean, let's be honest about it, okay? He
Mhm.
he put out his E equals MC squared, but he didn't define the parameters of energy at all, right?
Yep.
Physics has not been able to explain why matter has mass. Now, I know you're saying, Chester, that's stupid. All matter has mass. We pick it up and it has weight. Oh, sure. For a practical day to day person, it doesn't matter. But if you're trying to scientifically put together theories that you can therefore move forward science, you need to explain why matter has mass. You must be able to explain it, but they
Mhm.
can't. Right now, these plasma guys are starting to get on that, and they're starting to put forward some theories and testing them, and maybe they're in the right direction. Maybe they're not, but they're real scientists, so they'll admit it straight up. So we'll see where it goes. But the thing is, these things that Einstein put out really were anti-science ideas because you couldn't go and actually do anything to prove it because he took all the parameters away. It wasn't just him; it was a few other people. But that's where science is today. You have the Church of Einstein and Newton and Hawking,
Mm.
and we don't have actual scientists going in and trying to do actual science. And then one of the big problems with nuclear physics, in particular, is you can't test it, right? You can't because you'll blow up cities, right? So I mean that's a problem. But aside from that, the issue, and this isn't just in the physics. You can find this in anthropology, et cetera, et cetera, which I think what this guy is talking about. But I've
Yep.
rambled enough. Let me let you this. Listen to this old dude. Listen.
People talk glibly about science. What is science? people coming out of a university with a master's degree or a PhD, you take them into the field, and they literally don't believe anything unless there's a peer-reviewed paper. It's the only thing they accept. And you say to them, but let's observe, let's think, let's discuss. They don't do it.
Yeah.
It's just, is it in a peer-reviewed paper or not? That's their view of science. I think it's pathetic. Gone into universities as bright young people. They come out of them brain dead, not even knowing what science means. They think it means peer-reviewed papers, etc. No, that's academia. And if a paper is peer-reviewed, it means everybody thought the same, therefore they approved it. An unintended consequence is that when new knowledge emerges, new scientific insights, they can never, ever be peer-reviewed. So we're blocking all new advances in science that are big advances. If you look at the breakthroughs in science, almost always they don't come from the center of that profession. They come from the fringe.
Yeah.
The finest candle makers in the world couldn't even think of electric lights. They don't come from within. They often come from outside the breaks. We're going to kill ourselves because of stupidity.
That is
I
a
like
cool
that.
old dude, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big fan of him.
That's just raw honesty in your face. The interesting thing, we're seeing a lot of these kind of fringe scientists, as he was talking about, coming out of Australia and Russia. Isn't that interesting?
Extreme climates.
Yeah, I guess maybe they have a little more free thinking over there when it comes to science.
Yeah.
But I know most of you don't care. I understand. But this is so freaking frustrating to me, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a historical person. You're a sales repair guy, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Now Ben is an engineer, computer engineer, but still an engineer. What's your take on it, Ben? I mean, coming from an engineering point of view.
Yeah, that's a good question. First of all, the video, I couldn't hear anything, so it wasn't playing for me. I just figured it's because it was my car. But when you say that we're not doing science anymore, I think that becomes very contextual because that it really determines or is dependent on like which field you're talking about because there's a lot of different fields of science and there are some fields where I think there's a lot of really good science going on, right? And there's others that I would agree there's we're need to kind of like rekindle the flame on. In my field, things are getting like crazier and crazier every single year, right? The curve is still going. Like computing power is getting faster and faster. We're doing more and more. You're now streaming all your stuff. I remember like one of my relatives was asking me, is like, what comes after like Blu-rays? And I was like, nothing. You're going to be streaming. Like you're not going to own like physical media anymore, right? Just like the CDs and stuff, right? And we're seeing more computing power. We thought we were slowing down, but we actually just keep going forward. NVMe cards, have once again changed the game, and GPUs get faster and faster. Now we're doing like practical quantum computing. Like we have real life, real actual quantum computers. We're doing, we now have qubits, and we are like calculating data different than we've ever calculated in our entire lives, and it's changed our entire way of thinking from a computing perspective, right? That with far less power needed and far less CPU power, you can calculate the same or more than like a supercomputer with just some qubits, on your side. So I would say from that perspective, we're still making leaps and bounds, right? The adoption and advent of have I told you that I got to play with the augmented reality glasses one time when they were in town in Austin?
That sounds
The
cool,
fact
though.
that it's not virtual reality, it's augmented reality to where it's these glasses you put on and it gives like a computer overlay to everything you're looking at. You can actually see like little matrix lines go up as like the computer maps your surroundings. And so if I want to watch like Netflix, I just open a browser and I mount it to the wall in front of me, and I just kick my feet up and I watch Netflix on like a virtual browser on my glasses. And the thing that's crazy is the glasses remember where the browser is. So if I get up, it's still playing relative to the position I left it, right? And
That's
that
cool. Yeah.
and it's crazy, right? And it's going to recreate how we think and interact with reality, right? And so, like from that perspective, and I know that would probably fall under your concept of like engineers just playing around, but like I have to kind of push back on that a little bit because like we're doing crazy groundbreaking things that
Yes,
we didn't even
the
think we could do
engineers are.
20 years ago.
The engineers are.
But
Yeah.
but no, but like it's a combination of the two because we didn't have this technology. Somebody has to think it up. Somebody has to create the science
Of
behind it,
course,
right?
the engineers.
We have to.
Wolowitz versus Sheldon.
Well, it's a little bit different than that.
Thank you.
I know what you're saying, right? But it's a marriage between the two. It's not just engineers, right? It's a combination of the two.
You get my
So,
point, though.
but
You do.
no,
And
I totally
I
get
was
your point.
leaning
I'm not saying
more
you're wrong.
historically in physics. I was leaning that way. You're right. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I get your point. And of course things do progress, but they could be progressing much further. For instance, it's become very clear to me because I am leaning more toward the physics stuff and anthropologically as well. But it's become very clear to me after a decade of personal study, and I mean actual study, that these plasma guys are really in the right direction and they're starting to bang out some stuff. That Sapphire project, dude, that's going to change the world. Not, and I know you hear all these things all the time on the YouTubes talking about, oh, our Elon Musk has got a diamond battery, and fuck that. We're at the absolute maximum of batteries right now, whether it be solid state or not. Because the problem is, we got to the point with batteries that they're a freaking bomb waiting to blow your head off, is what they are, right? So it's a bunch of nonsense. But the Sapphire project, however, is real deal. They're actually in the laboratory doing some amazing things, and you might see within a decade a freaking generator that you never, ever have to pay for electricity in your house again, and that's not being hyperbolic at all. So these plasma guys are moving in the right direction, and it's very interesting. Now they get into some fringe stuff too, but that's where science should be. I think is my point, and it's certainly this old dude's point, who is awesome. I don't know who he is, but I'm going to find out because that dude's awesome.
Yeah, I like him. I'd recommend watching that video when you get a chance, Ben. It's in the Discord general. I think I posted it.
Yeah,
It's pretty
I'll give it a
interesting.
shot. I'll give it a look.
I think he's probably very correct, just from my interactions with the people he's talking about, right?
He was talking about peer-reviewed papers. If it isn't peer-reviewed, no
Yeah.
one will even talk about it, and that's nonsense. He was more on that line of it, and of course that is true. And you can't have, if it's peer review, well, that means it's not new. And if it's not new, then what's the point? We're trying to push science forward. He was complaining about peer-reviewed papers, Ben, is what he was saying.
And just the general malaise of people coming out of universities now, where they're so dependent upon this peer review process that they don't even seem to be able to think. He said, is basically what he said, and I agree with him because I've interacted with those people, and you just throw them a curveball, and they're gone, they're done.
Well, because
you're talking to an idiot now. They don't know what you're talking. You're just speaking Greek to them.
That's an extreme cultist you're talking about, but they do exist for sure. I'm sorry, Ben, you were trying to say something?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to be criticized at the upper echelons of academia as far as like how they're doing things. Like you hit tenured status, and it becomes not a matter of the science, but a matter of like fundraising, right?
Yeah, money.
And that and that becomes a questionable practice. Like, what are you actually doing with your tenured status, right? And then it's they're trying to do it for the benefit of the school, but like, what's a professor doing? Nothing but like trying to fundraise for the school, right? I think you guys are right that there's a lot to be criticized of how the system operates right now, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the thing is, even from my small point of view, and Roger, I do know Harari. He's actually a friend of mine. I work with him, and he's a great anthropologist. But he's a really smart guy. But that's kind of off topic. But no. The problem you get into this is because money is so steeped in it, and it's not necessarily this person or that person's fault. It's just the system itself, right? The money
Hmm.
is so steeped in it. You got to find your what it does is it forces people to go into a niche, and a very
Wait,
very small niche, in order to make money at what they do. And this is limiting, not only in narrowing the scope of vision, but in your ability. Now, I personally am a polymath. And trust me, being a polymath in modern day is freaking viciously difficult. Okay, but that's what I am, and I'm damned if I won't be that. Yeah, I'm stubborn. Okay, well, I am. But
Oh no,
yes.
I don't believe it.
Well, I'm just saying, but we need more polymaths. That's what we need.
Yeah.
We need more
Well, it
of
was
us.
polymaths that largely drove a lot of the innovations you're talking about, the things that genuinely changed the world. It was often polymaths that did that
Of
because
course,
they what they
always.
were doing is in order to create this thing, whatever it is, they needed data from all different aspects of science. They couldn't just focus on one thing with tunnel vision. Now some of them did, but a lot of them didn't. You couldn't just focus on one thing with tunnel vision and burst through that wall to create the next whatever, right?
Right.
Pick a great scientific invention. You needed a wide breadth of knowledge to be able to put the pieces together and get it and just get it right.
You do.
And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons why I am so against our current academic structure, why I refuse to go into it even though I have a near genius level IQ, is because it forces you very hard, or tries to, down that one path. And I'm not like that. One, I can learn better on my own than I can being taught. That's just how I am. I'm much better at that. So I just do. When I want to learn something, I just go learn it. Like right now, I'm learning how to basically grow my own crops because food's getting so damn expensive. So I'm gonna make my own little farm on my
Yeah.
land.
Most people used
Um,
to. That's a pretty
yeah,
standard thing. Yeah.
that kind of stuff, right? And I think there's room. There's a lot of people like me. See, I'm fine, but there's a lot of men like me and women too who got lost by the system because the system kept trying to pull them the wrong way. And some people, that just breaks them. They just never recover from that. And they're incredibly smart people and insightful people if you talk to them, but for whatever reason, they never achieved academic success beyond basic stuff, largely because the system is designed to break them out, to get them out of the way because they want a specific set of personality traits. And that's all they want. And if you don't have them, they're going to push you away. Unless you're
Yeah.
like extreme genius, then they
Yeah.
won't, you know.
That is another issue. That is another issue you find in various fields. It's true. Now, Roger says, aren't these, because he's talking about plasma science here, aren't these science guys just using Tesla theories? Oddly, no. I'm surprised they don't lean more into Tesla because he
Mhm.
was definitely on the right track. But no, these guys are much more with Birkeland and Ampere and Mr. Hertz and Velikovsky and Thornhill and people like that. Oddly enough, Tesla never gets mentioned, which is weird.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It is weird.
But that's a very specific narrowing of the conversation. I don't want to do that
Mhm.
because I'd rather look at the big picture. But I'm going to move on from it. But uh, it is
I'm gonna drop
frustrating, dude.
for just a moment. I gotta say goodnight to my kids, so I will be on later.
Okay, dude.
All
So
right, bud.
Cool, cool.
yeah, later.
Um, but and in my field too, I've been narrowed down. I am a polymath by practice, but by employment, I am a philologist. Well, not even. I'm a linguist. Actually, I'm a translator, so I've been narrowed down to that little piece. Right now, the
Mhm.
philology certainly helps me do the linguistics, of course, but that's the world we live in. It just wants to narrow you down. To be a polymath these days is really, really rough. But anyway,
Yeah.
let's go ahead and move on. Hey, Grimlock, what's up, dude?
Gridlock's a polymath. He's a very intelligent. He's a very intelligent man. He doesn't like people to know it, but I can tell because I'm a very intelligent man and I can tell.
Okay. Okay.
How you doing? I'm doing all right.
That's good. I'm glad to hear it. All right, let's get into it today. So
Oh boy, here we go. Ad-supported version of Disney streaming service will not accept alcohol or political advertising to keep a family-friendly environment. I like this picture he's chosen.
right. It's Josh here. Yeah. No, it's yeah. Okie dokie. But all right. That's fine. Don't put politics or alcohol in your Disney stuff. Cool. I think you're lying about the political stuff.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think you're lying.
They compartmentalize away things that they don't want to be considered political because they want no one to have any resistance to them, whatever they are. So that's not a political. That's just a moral position. Is the ridiculous gaslighting they do.
Yeah.
And that's probably what they're going to do here.
It's unfortunate that Ben dropped off because I put this here to piss him off anyway. But of course, by definition, homosexual things are not family oriented, aren't they not? I mean, seeing
I would
as the
say
whole
so.
point of homosexuality is to not be part of the cycle, is it not?
Right.
So obviously that's the joke here put up by Josh Berger. I don't even care what the
Oh my god.
guys did. Yeah, rainbow flags for the gay frog. Alex Ross was right. Not Alex. Is it what's his name? Alex what?
I don't know.
The
Who are
crazy
you talking about?
screaming one. Alex.
You lost
Alex
me.
Jones?
Alex Jones.
Oh,
Thank you, Alex
yeah.
Jones. Yeah.
Wow.
Alex
I
Jones.
had him in my picture for like
So did I.
3
Yeah.
months.
Yeah. Yeah, this is so much bullshit. And that it's just laughable. I'll let you soak that in for a second. You soak that in.
What in the hell, man? You look like Shrek. You
You
look
do.
like Shrek in a wig.
You do.
What are you doing?
And once
Oh,
again,
unfortunate looking person.
if this is what you do and how you live on your weekends, go ahead, enjoy yourself.
Yeah, whatever.
But we don't need you doing story time with the kids. We don't need you doing sexy twerking with the little kids. I really
No.
don't understand why people aren't being battered about the Head and Shoulders more. I really don't. But beyond that, this is a ridiculous statement from Disney. You're so full of shit, Disney. However,
yeah.
this got me on a train of thought because read this headline.
Disney actor who wants, quote, MAGA lunatics to burn in hell releases trailer for new R-rated gay sex comedy that takes shots at straight people, features explicit sex acts.
Okay, let's break that down for a minute. His manga hating, it's just tedious.
Manga.
All right, fine. We'll just leave. We'll just leave that aside. Okay. R-rated gay sex comedy. Well, how many rom-coms are actually R-rated? Anybody?
Not many, I would assume.
Not many,
I
yeah.
would say probably none.
Yeah, probably very few, if any.
But okay, so you want to do an R-rated one for the gays? Okay, that's fine. Taking shots at straight people. How often do rom-coms pick on gays? How when has that ever happened? Anybody?
In the last 15 years?
Or ever?
I'd say I'm sure there's probably a couple examples out there, but no, typically that's not what they're focusing on. If anything, the gay person in it is the gay friend.
Well, sure,
right?
it's the cliche gay friend, right? It's not, but they're not taking shots at him.
Right. I mean, they make like some jokes here or there, but it's lighthearted. It's not malicious.
Yeah, but
or they're not homophobic.
Because there's hardly any movie there is no movie that comes to my mind that actually is anti-homosexual. Because
no, that's what I'm saying. It's not like that at all. If anything, they'll be the butt of a joke because they're just so flamboyantly gay, something like that. But
right,
no, there's the rom-coms especially are not the genre that is going to go
No,
after
not that
homosexuals in
genre.
any
That's
way.
true. Because they are for the ladies. And
Yeah.
ladies tend to like to have the gay friend around. And then last, but certainly not least, how many rom-coms feature explicit sexual acts? How many of those?
Not
I
many.
bet you there must be one.
It depends how
A
explicit we're
rom-com?
talking, but not many. I mean, it's obviously in there, right? It's obviously, we know what's happening,
It's
but
insinuated. Yeah, sure.
yeah, explicit.
Yeah, but see,
I got none.
Dave,
I
Porky's
got
and
none.
Meatballs, Porky's is the one you want. It's not a rom-com. It's just a comedy,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And there are some naked girls in there for sure. Rom-coms don't tend to do that. But here's the thing. So this got me thinking. Aside from this person's clear toxic hate, because it's a hateful person, obviously. But it got me thinking though. Are there any gay rom-coms? Because I've never seen one, but I figured to myself, well, there must be. I went and checked. How many gay rom-coms do you think there are, Grimlock?
I would say none.
There are hundreds.
Are there? That's fun.
Hundreds. I've never
Of gay
heard of.
ones?
Yes, full on gay rom-coms. There are hundreds of them. I'd never heard of one,
Interesting.
never saw one because when I first saw it, other than this idiot, I was like, oh, okay, you want to make a gay rom-com that's very specifically gay rom-com? Fine, go for it, right?
Hey,
But I was
does
like,
the birdcage count?
the birdcage would certainly count.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, yeah.
Okay. I know of one.
Yeah, you got
I,
one.
I
Well, the
I had to
birdcage is
go
a
way
great
back in
movie.
the memory of.
I
Yeah,
love
it
the
was.
Birdcage. Yeah, it's a great movie. But I went and checked it. I researched it, and there are hundreds of them. So this guy's insinuation here is that this has not been done, and he's full of shit. Because I love some of the things in here. I in what is being hailed as the first movie to feature an LGBTQ cast. No, dude. Literally, you're hundreds behind. Okay. They specified to cast in every role, and even that's no. Bill Eichner's, this fella's romantic sex comedy Bros, is here to let you know that yes, gay people do have sex. Oh, really? I wouldn't have known that other than the fact that every time sit down with a gay person, that all they do is talk about sex. I wouldn't know that. I'm shocked, aren't you?
Stunned and amazed over
Yes.
here.
Because one of the things
Completely dumbfounded.
yeah,
Yeah.
even because one
Even.
one of the things about it is I personally think that they're oversexed is one of the problems, right? That they
Yep.
have. But
Yep.
whatever. It's I gave him credit and I went and took a look. I checked it out. I actually took time and wasted my time to research this. And trust me, it was painful.
Uh,
Hundreds of them. You are full of shit. This isn't the first
this
anything. This has been done before. But you do you. That's cool. I
Well,
hope you
this
know.
is more that crap that I can't stand. Like if it didn't happen before the invention of Twitter, it didn't happen. Shit that you keep
Yeah, it's
that we
ridiculous.
seemingly keep running into.
Yeah.
And I guess now that they've made the LGBT thing such like this big thing, I guess they're trying to say, well, we never had a LGBT cast. Like, well, you
Yes, you
had
did.
gay cast.
There are many. There are
Fucking
literally
thing.
hundreds of them. Hundreds of them, literally.
Yeah, but that's not how they're wording it. You see how they're specifically wording it. So they're
Dude,
trying to,
most of those
you
gay
know, it's
rom-coms are all
gangster
gay. Every
headline.
cast member is a gay character. They're inside the world of homosexuality. That's the point. That's their whole
Yeah,
point.
but
Because they're doing the same thing as saying, like, we want to see what it looks like inside our world. It's been done hundreds of times. That's what I
and
mean.
and I got some news for this guy. The vast majority of people don't care about your world. We
No,
really don't.
but you do you. You go ahead and make what you want, dude. Good on you. I don't care what this person's doing. I just don't understand the constant lies about it's never been seen before. It's the first time. It's not, dude. I found actual gay rom-coms going back to the 60s. The 60s. And keep in mind there were places in America in the 60s where you could be arrested for being gay, right?
yeah.
but of course, not California, obviously. So they're so full of shit, dude. So full of shit. And yes, Dave, women in prison movies do count. Absolutely.
Absolutely. They always count.
They always count.
They make sure of it.
Yeah. But just more lies, but whatever, you do you, dude.
Well, here's my question, right? When is it enough? They keep claiming they want acceptance and this and this and this and okay, you get a whole month, June. You get all of June. That's Gay Month. That's Gay Pride Month. Okay. You have major retailers putting, for children, mind you, clothing and merchandise on their shelves right now and preparing for Gay Pride Month. You have things like Chester's saying, hundreds of different rom-coms and movies and whatnot devoted entirely to homosexuality.
Yeah.
You
I
have
only looked at rom-coms, by the way. Only rom-coms.
Every single major corporation and pretty much every single major institution in the country and throughout most of the world supports you openly and fervently. They constantly are talking about, this kind of nonsense, LGBTQ representation, and it's this, and it's this, and it's this, and, they're constantly doing what we call virtue signaling about it.
Yeah.
When is enough enough? How much more adulation do you need before you're like, you know what? We're good.
All of it.
That's good.
All of it.
I think that's enough.
Well, I think a thing that irritates them, and of course, I'm really harping on the lie that this is not the first time this has been done, dude. But I think the thing that really irritates them is most people, as what you said, the word is tolerate, right? But most humans, the vast majority of humans, don't accept it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what irritates them. That's what bugs them. They want not only because it feels I didn't really I probably had the notion when I was younger, but these days when you look at the TikToks and all the stuff that's going on and this constant desire for attention, it's almost as if they feel guilty and they want to force the rest of us to be in it with them so that they don't feel as guilty. That's what it feels like.
Ooh. Uh-oh. Cutting deep now. Now we're cutting deep. I don't know. I genuinely have no idea. But what I do know is I think most people are tired of the constant parade of praise and adulation because somebody wants to suck a dick instead of eat a pussy. Like, good job.
Yeah, whatever, dude.
Great.
That's just
Who cares?
the thing. And once again, I'm talking more about the lie he's taking here than the movie itself.
Well, yeah, I understand that, and that's part of the problem. The reason why he's lying like that, the reason why they're trying to make this into a bigger deal than it is because they're so insecure and so, like you say, want validation is the word you're looking for. Because if they say this is the first time, like they tried to say that the Black Panther movie was the first time it was an all-black whatever. Ridiculous. And that's not true. That's ridiculous. Yeah, completely untrue. But they still did it. They still did it.
Well, when Grimlock here and I were young, they had a thing on TV called The Roots.
Yep.
Remember that one, Grimlock?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing with it is though, that I don't know. Grimlock, I've had moments in my life where I have almost done something wrong, something bad. And I get this feeling in the gut of my stomach. It's that second brain we got, those parasites down there in the gut that seem to have a mind of their own. It tells me, probably shouldn't do that. I shouldn't do that. So I've spent my life listening to my gut. And therefore, I can sit here as a 50-year-old man. I've never stolen. I've never cheated or defrauded anyone in my life. I have never broken an actual crime. Speeding is not real. That doesn't count. That's tax collecting. But I'm saying I never have. I haven't. I'm a 50-year-old dude, and I've never actually done anything evil in my life ever. And the reason I haven't is because that gut, it comes up and it starts grinding on you, and you back up off of it. And I'm kind of wondering if I don't know. It just feels like listening to these people scream and yell. Not all of them. Some are quite seem to be quite comfortable in their own skin, but the ones we hear a lot, the ones we see in front of us a lot, the which I don't even know if they're real gays. They seem to have that gut reaction going on constantly, dude. It's like eating at them, and I'm kind of wondering if maybe the people we're seeing up and screaming, maybe they're not real. Maybe they're forcing themselves to be something because they want to be part of the in crowd, or they see it as an opportunity for power or something. I'm asking this question legitimately,
Hmm.
right?
Well, I got another angle that I'm looking at it from. I'm looking at it as these people are kind of in some duplicity here,
Yeah,
where they they know that what they are is not normal, but they
yeah.
want to be seen as normal while at the same time being seen as special.
Hmm.
I just
Because
said
as I
that.
said before, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's like I'm saying, well, you're saying from almost like a conscience kind of thing, like
An
they know that
instinctual,
it's
yeah,
wrong. I don't think they're seeing it as wrong. They want to be seen. They want something that's not normal to be normal, which is never going to happen.
right. But and
At
I
least in my
just kind
opinion.
of wondering if that gut is betraying them, you know. But anyway, I don't think I don't even think this conversation we're having is about actual gays. Is the thing the kind of the conclusion I'm coming to, because I've met real gay people in my life,
Yeah,
and first of all, they're not noisy at all.
Hmm.
I guarantee you, they don't like what's going on because it's hurting them, right?
yeah. Well,
But the
it's
yeah, the people we see, I just think they're fake gays, dude. I think there's a lot of fake gays in the world today. I really do.
well, social. Well, I'll say. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Social media has allowed a lot of narcissistic people
Oh, that's the word.
an
You found
avenue.
it. We should put a pin in
It's
that.
it
I'm gonna write that down.
it, it I mean, again, it goes back to how these kids was taught, how these kids was taught to perceive themselves as like everything you do, everything about you is special, everything you do is special, and it's not. But that's
Yeah.
bullshit.
Well,
Um,
Grimlock, there's another N word that needs to be put into the conversation. It's
Which
not
one?
just
Neanderthal.
narcissism. Neanderthalism?
Well,
No, no.
what is the other one?
Nihilism.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. I mean, the turning the back on God and tradition and family values. That's
Yep.
what nihilism gets you, right? I mean, nihilism, you
But
can just put the, quote, communism, right? That's what
Hmm.
it is.
yeah,
It's destruction of everything that
Well, the
is.
the truth of the matter is, and this is what everybody wants to resist, but the truth of the matter is, most people need some form of God. They just do.
Yeah.
They're not. They don't have the will or the discipline or the intellect or whatever word you want to use to be truly godless, because they can't. They will find something will sit on that throne, as Jesus says. Something will sit on that throne. You will put someone on the throne of your heart, whether it's a God you can
Right.
believe in with values you can cherish,
Or
or it's
Albert
some form
Einstein.
of or Albert Einstein, you will put someone there or something there, and that'll be so. A lot of people, it's their children, and I'm not even saying they're wrong for that. I'm just saying a lot of people, certain things become their quote God, the
Yep.
thing that they aspire to, they follow, they cherish, they worship, whatever word you want to use. And when you tell people, the famous Nietzsche quote that God is dead, what he wasn't actually declaring that. He was warning of what happens
Yeah.
when God is dead. And
Dude,
this is exactly where we are now.
a
We're in
lot
a
of
deeply narcissistic place
a lot of
because of it.
people don't read Nietzsche correctly.
Correct.
He's not stating, he's warning. A lot of his
That's right.
statements is about what things have become, not what they should be. People don't read Nietzsche correctly at all. And I do have my God. I'm going to reveal it for the first time. It's kind of personal to me, but
Cheesecake.
no, no, Reese's
Oh.
Pieces.
Ah, I was close. It was food. I knew it.
Yeah, yeah, because Anyway, let's move on from this nonsense. But I'll give you this little bit of love here, just because, because you need it. You need it. Okay.
Oh,
Let's move on here to more fun.
Netflix animated series from Meghan Markle gets the royal flush.
I
Thank
I
God.
love it. The Nerdigans
A
Inc.
great
Yeah,
headline.
good job.
Great headline.
Well,
You're getting claps.
now Netflix is absolutely cutting bait, right? Clearly, they're
Yeah.
canceling stuff left and right. They're firing woke employees. They're trying to save themselves. I don't know if they will be able to, but they should at least try whilst they still have some money. However, I put this up here for a different reason, because I'm not interested in this twat at all. At all. She's an
Yep.
absolute brainlet, right? However,
That's the least
uh,
of her problem.
well, I'm just, whatever. But the thing is, there's a whole chunk of society that love this kind of brainlet shit, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the
Mm.
Kardashians, useless humans
Well,
that have no skill whatsoever, but yet look how popular they are. So I'm kind of curious. I'm surprised that Netflix did cancel this because, you have a market for that, right?
it's not as big as people thought it was. I think Netflix realized that there's a lot more people who despise Meghan Markle than people who like her.
Really.
And she's actually worse than the
She's a
Kardashians.
princess.
She's a hoe.
Yeah,
The
well,
royal hoe.
that's true. Well, Harry's a hoe
She's
too, so let's be fair.
no, he's the royal simp.
Yeah.
Well, now,
Because that's
yeah, yeah.
basically look, the people who love her because this woman was a directionless baby mama who has slightly above average looks and nothing else of any use. I don't even like, at least with the Kardashians, like, they got their money from their families and whatever. So at least you understood why people pretended to care about them. Nobody knew who this hoe was
Yeah, but
until
Grimlock,
until
she's
she
one.
found the royal simp.
Oh, she did.
Uh,
She
uh,
did
uh,
file the royal sin,
it,
but
yeah,
Grimlock, she's 1/16 black though.
I don't give a fuck.
Okay,
What-
she's one of your
what-
She's more than
peoples.
1/16. She's like maybe a third.
No, no, no. She's literally 1/16 black. Literally, I
Really?
checked. I checked it out. Yeah.
Oh,
Once
why would
it,
anybody produce that information about themselves?
Well,
People, we
you know
just
what
deserve what's
you,
coming as a
you know what
society. Ugh,
you know what the equivalent of that is me playing a hand of spades and getting one goddamn spade. That's all that means. They're like,
yeah.
well,
Oh,
good.
yeah. I've had
I
those
can play
days,
that
dude.
card
I know.
once.
I know it sucks. Yeah. But then it goes to the genetic comments that I've made before, though. The Negroid DNA is super mega strong, dude. It's very
yeah.
strong. It's all dominant, right? Where a lot of other racial groups, they have recessive genes, but the genes in the Negroid population is mega dominant, and it takes generations for it to disappear if it ever really does. It is really interesting to me. I know it's probably not interesting to you guys, but it's fascinating to me how dominant the Negroid gene actually is. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And this is a good example. She's literally only a 16th,
Oh,
but you
Chester,
wouldn't know
you're
that.
telling me that this girl is as much black as I am Cherokee?
Yep.
Ah,
Yep. But that wasn't really the point I was putting. I get Grimlock's thing, and he's right. Because she's an absolute twat, dude. I could care less about this idiot. And I don't know why they keep calling her Duchess of Sussex because that has been revoked. Don't you know?
best I
Yeah.
knew, yeah.
Yes.
And I don't blame him. I don't blame him
No,
because
because she
and
embarrassed
and
the
and
crown, dude. She embarrassed the crown.
and,
Yeah.
and, and I know some people say because she's black. I'm like, come on.
Bullshit, dude. She's not. We
Prince
just did.
Harry
Yeah.
Prince Harry could have had any fucking puss in the
And
world,
he did.
and there's plenty. In fact, there's still, as quietly as it's kept, black African royalty. He
Oh
could have
yeah.
married him an African princess, and I'm pretty sure Elizabeth wouldn't have had a problem. But he brought that hoe home, and it's like,
Right. Well, it's not the first time that
this
that
motherfucker.
a non-white has entered the royalty of Europe. It's not the first time.
Oh, I'm
But
pretty sure.
it was. I can
But
guarantee you it's not. But my point was, I just figured that I thought it was. I was surprised because I figure, well, there's a community for this content. But maybe you're
Yeah.
right. Maybe she's just far more hated. She just spouted off, because it's kind of like the nouveau rich is what happened to her, but in a prestige way, I guess. Because as soon as she was moving up toward becoming an actual princess, boy, did her attitude change. She became knowledgeable and outspoken. Thundero.
Oh yeah, she's very knowledgeable, but she's outspoken. That's for sure. But her knowledge is about as deep as a puddle. She's one of these people. She is the perfect example of a midwit.
No, she is a nitwit. Yeah, like
She's
so.
smarter than your average person, but she's not actually smart. She's just smarter than average.
Oh no,
But she
she's literate. You have to understand this.
Yes,
She's
yes,
literate.
she can retain a little bit of information, but she doesn't know what to do with it. Right? It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. A lot of people in academia now, and I know this from literal personal experience, working with them and talking to them, they'll retain information. They got no idea what to do with that information. They have no idea how to apply it.
They're not
Nothing.
scientists at all. Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
true. But anyway, I'm going to move on from it. I just figured there was a market for that, but I guess not. But whatever. Sorry, there may.
Netflix is bleeding, so
They
they're
are.
gonna gauze that wound up as quickly as possible.
True.
Well,
Yeah.
again, these companies are getting to a point where you can't just keep shitting away $50 million, $100 million
Yeah, that's right.
on vanity projects.
On Halo.
Yeah.
We'll get to that abomination later.
Yeah, no, it's unfortunately really, really bad. It's gone twisted. But anyway, let's move on here to something fun. You ready? I want to have fun.
I like
Here.
it.
What a
I like
great,
this.
what
Yeah.
a great headline.
10 best MCU post-credit scenes. Well, the best one still, in my opinion, Chester, is the first one. When Nick Fury shows up.
Yeah,
That was
that's
good.
the one we're seeing right here. It is a good one.
Yeah.
But now it's not like we haven't seen post-credit stuff before. We certainly have. Jackie Chan just comes to my mind immediately. He did a lot of stuff showing his goofs.
Breaking his leg.
Yeah,
Rumble in the
dude, all
Bronx.
kind of crazy shit. But MCU adding the post-credit scene, usually two, I guess. It's a good move. I don't mind that at all. I thought it was fun.
Yep.
So let's take a look at what we got here. So number one, yeah, it should be on
Howard
the
the
list.
Duck.
Yeah, old Howard there, looking all disheveled.
And they
Yeah,
did
there he
nothing
is.
with him. They did
No,
nothing.
but we got a peek anyway, and
I know, but when I saw that, I was genuinely excited to see Howard the Duck, because I am one of those weirdos who grew up watching that movie and actually still enjoy watching
I
that
love
movie.
that movie, dude. I love that movie. It's good fun. I don't know why people hate it so much. It's fairly well done. And Howard the Duck is bawdy. That's what Howard the Duck is, and that's why you won't see him in the MCU. He's bawdy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Which it's funny because they keep trying to lean into that kind of humor, and it's like, well, you got nobody better at it than Howard.
That's right. That's right. But they won't pull that trigger. But in some
I mean,
Elseworld story,
you give people a series with Rocket Raccoon and Howard the Duck, and it's a little one. I'm not saying you go full in, but a little
You could do a
suggestive
pretty
here and
cool,
there
like,
with the jokes.
you could do a pretty cool, like, adult-themed animated series with those two. They should do that, actually.
Yeah.
Get like the guys who did Rick and Morty or somebody like that who've done them, and just let them have some fun and let them do something crazy with those two.
Right.
That could be cool.
And to be fair, Yondu and his Reavers did go into a robot bordello.
Yeah.
I mean, they did, right? So, I mean, but I agree. I would love to see it. It'd be fun, but I just don't think they're going to bite, dude. But that was a great thing to see. Howard, I was very happy with it, so that was cool. And let's come down here to Thanos saying, "Get ready." He takes the glove out of the storage shelf,
Yeah.
I guess.
Which doesn't make much sense, considering the fact of in Infinity War they showed where that glove was made, and it appeared like it was just recently done. So the timeline's a little askew.
Yeah, but does this one deserve to be on the list, though? I guess
No.
it's not bad. I just don't know if it deserves to be on the list, though. I mean,
No, I'd
N-
say no.
No, because you'd already saw him already, so it's like you knew it was coming, so there wasn't that holy shit factor.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, that's true. Dave says
At least
Strange
for
Brew
me.
had a post-credit scene. Eh? Yeah, it did. Yeah.
No, yeah, I don't think it does.
No.
That one wasn't. It just wasn't as memorable as it probably should have been because it is kind of like the "Here I Come" moment, and then of course he didn't show up for however many more years it was. But yeah, no, I'd say no.
Well,
I'm with you on that. I
it
don't think it belongs on the
it
list.
would have been better if we were the camera was following behind him as he's walking forward, and he gave us, like, 20 seconds of him moving through a starship, and
Yeah.
then he picks it up. That would have been more powerful. This was super short clip, if you don't remember. It was very
They should have, if they were going to change, because obviously that wasn't the plan. If you go back to the original one, which is probably on here when Thanos first showed up, the little line about death and him smirking at it, I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
the plan was to do Thanos, to do the story. It was going to be ridiculous and insane because he's supposed to be, and they changed it at some point to the eco-fascist, basically,
yeah,
which was fine. I didn't mind it. It's just I think I like the Mad Titan. I like the
right.
other story. So if you would have had here just him walking, and obviously I don't know if they had decided fully on the voice yet, so maybe they didn't do that. Maybe that's not why. Um, and just him kind of laying out a little bit, like giving hints to what he's actually after. I think that could have been cool. You could have used this
Yeah,
to help establish a little bit more
right.
the
Well,
character. It's kind of it. They did a good job of teasing Thanos for all that time, and we knew he was obviously eventually coming. But I don't know. I think they could have done just a little bit more, and those teases would have, like this scene specifically, would have felt more oomph to him. Like, yeah, oh shit, here comes Thanos, and you kind of get a little bit of idea of what he's about. Whereas obviously when they got to Infinity War, they basically made that thing up right there. Like there was no
yeah,
hints that that was what he was about up
no.
until that movie.
Well, bad guys can't be bad, right? They have to
Yeah.
be good, right? And that's the idiocy that's going on.
And
And
the
of
best part
course,
about Thanos is he's crazy. You could have just had him be crazy.
he's
That's it.
literally the Mad Titan, yeah, and he's not mad at
Yes.
all. But I kind of think Hela was probably the direction they were going with that initially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that makes sense. But whatever. I don't. This was okay. Next one here. No. Yeah,
No.
no,
No,
no. Why? Why?
for
No.
calling her this, that part is like, dude. Most actual Marvel fans had been waiting 10 years for them to finally call her the Scarlet Witch. No,
Mm,
that's not a wow moment. That's a about fucking time moment.
yeah, no, no,
Next.
no, no. Next. That okay. The Maximoff twins. That Captain America Winter Soldier. That was okay. That's not a bad one. Of course, the problem with this one is the only people who really got it were us.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, in fairness, the first Thanos one was the same way. A lot of people didn't know who Thanos was. Right after Avengers came out, he was like the number one searched
That's fair.
thing
That
on
is
Google
fair.
for a while.
Yeah. But I didn't mind this one. Yeah, this was fine. Yeah, I knew very clearly who it was. You know.
Yeah.
Right. So
The Maximoffs.
the
Man, that Quicksilver was a waste. What
Whoa,
a
my God,
waste.
dude! And what a
He was
shame.
really good.
Yeah.
If you actually watch the Age of Ultron with like the extended version that has more scene, he's doing more stuff because they cut out a bunch of his stuff.
Oh, really?
He's really good. He's really good as Quicksilver. They should have just not killed him. It was so dumb.
Yeah, he didn't have the dismissiveness enough, really, to be
Yeah.
Quicksilver, because Quicksilver just doesn't care. I mean, that's kind
Right.
of a big part of his character. Although the kid, which wasn't very Quicksilvery either, but the kid they had in the Fox thing was freaking epic, though.
Yeah.
That kid was awesome. But whatever, this one's good. This one's good. Yeah, so let's move on to the next one here. Ah,
I don't even remember this one. So there's that.
This is leading into the first Thor movie, which was a bad movie actually.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
do not remember that.
Yeah,
at
I don't know
all.
what who put this list together. Hold on a second. Frank, what are you doing,
Frank, what are you
Frank?
doing, Frank? Come on, Frank.
Jesus. No. Next. No. 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 Maybe.
No, I don't like the
Maybe.
scrolls. I just don't,
Yeah.
especially not the MCU version. Nah, I'm
Yeah,
good on
that's not
scrolls.
the scrolls. I'm
This is
sorry.
Yeah,
The
weird, man.
scrolls
Yeah, you're right though.
the scrolls are imperialistic assholes, which you would think these leftists would have used them because it's everything they always complain about. And you have a literal race full of them, and you
But
make them sympathetic.
they're
Hey,
refugees, Grimlock. They're refugees.
refugees.
Yeah. But this is a weird list because there are some actually really good end credit scenes. But all right, fine. All right, okay. All right, fine. This was put in simply to, replace Black Widow movie with the Captain Marvel movie. Okay, fine.
Yep.
It's fine. But
boo,
this list is not making
boo,
me happy.
boo.
There you go. There's
Okay,
Thanos.
okay. All right, all right.
I
Yeah.
still say the original Thanos looked better than what we got. I don't know what it is about him. There's something more menacing. It's
Yeah, look at those eyes there.
yeah, yeah. Those are crazy motherfucker eyes. That's what those are. And the Thanos we got he was too sympathetic.
Yeah.
Again, I loved
Well, that's
him,
what they
but
wanted.
he's
Yeah.
too sympathetic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh well, but this was a good one. I don't know if it's number 3, but it was a good one. Let's see here. Now, fuck off. Fuck off.
That's not
Yes.
even a post-credit scene anymore, is it? Because
No.
it's at the beginning of the other movie.
This one's pretty good.
Yeah, there it
Um,
is.
this
See, I
was.
told you. I
Yeah.
told you that's the best one. The
I don't
Avengers
know if it
Initiative.
is, but there are so many good little post-credit scenes, and this is the 10 you chose. I mean, we
Yeah.
got what 20 plus of them, and you chose these. I mean,
Yeah.
shit, I'd like to see the other list of the other half. But whatever. Didn't make me as happy as I thought it was going to, Thundero.
Yeah, that's what happens when you lean into MCU. It makes you unhappy, Chester.
Damn it,
Makes you
Frank.
unhappy.
I'm moving on. I'm
No, I
moving
genuinely
on.
do. I genuinely do think the Iron Man one. It was so unexpected. There was no hints that was coming. At least that particular scene, and
Yeah.
him as Nick Fury was instantly perfect. Everybody was like, "Oh, well, that works.
Yeah,
That's perfect."
yeah, he did. He embodies the role. But it was also the beginning of the cucking of Tony Stark, though, because
That's
they
true.
constantly want to cuck this guy, constantly, right?
But the problem is, especially looking back on this list, is half of these scenes either didn't go anywhere, or
Yeah,
because of how they've done everything post Phase 3, it's meant nothing.
that's true.
Captain Marvel immediately made the Avengers that scene meaningless because it wasn't, oh, I'm putting the team together. It's, I'm just waiting for this white chick that I'm infatuated with to come back to fucking Earth. All
Right.
right.
Yeah, well, I
Whatever.
mean, and Phase 4 has basically taken all the work they did in the previous phases and said, nope, none of that meant
Yeah.
anything. WandaVision, Wanda, she can enslave an entire town of people. Nah, no problem, right?
Yeah.
What do you have? Captain America. White men are bad, you see. So this is a much better version. Steve Rogers, and we really don't want to talk about it directly, but he's problematic, right? Okay. Loki is just a horrible, stupid, useless goof. What an idiot! What an idiot! I mean, really,
You gotta
etc.
finish this.
Right? They've completely torn down everything they did, and that's why Endgame sucks because they tore down everything they did in that movie, and it's stupid,
It
stupid
Yeah, well,
should have
people.
been the grand celebration of the MCU Endgame. Should have been. It should have the
Yep.
name should have been the opposite of what it actually was. And
Game
that
on,
is
bitches.
it kind of was though. And for parts of it, like all of that was there, but then they went the other way, right? So like we got to go back to Asgard. We got to go back in time and see Tony Stark's dad and all that stuff. We got to go back to literally the first movie. They were doing that. They were doing the here's all the greatest hits type thing, but then they went there and kind of like shit on it.
They
And it's
did. They did.
like, what?
Yeah, because they
I
thought
want to see that.
they thought that's the only way to build up their Phase 4 characters by tearing down the stuff they'd built. It's stupid.
Yeah.
They're idiots. They're morons. Let me move on. I'm not happy about that, Frank. God damn it, Frank.
No, this list, no bueno, no bueno.
No bueno.
Feminist writer takes exception to Twitter users' opinion that Hillary Duff has, quote, aged like a fine wine, end quote.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Well, no,
Miss Duff has had some surgeries on her face.
possibly.
Clearly.
But looking at this picture, and I'll show you a few more. But looking at this picture, how old would you say she is?
She's in her
Oh,
30s somewhere. So.
late 30s. She's got to be close to my age.
Yeah, see, I look at this picture and I say this is a woman that's right on 40, maybe 39, maybe 43. You know, she's at the edge of it, right? She's at the edge of it.
Right.
Before, not, you know, because when we talk about aging like a fine wine, we're talking about a person, doesn't even have to be female, but a person who is, say, 50 and looks younger, right? Because that's
Right.
what that term is really used for. An older person, 50, even 60, who just looks really young. So, you know, the problem you have, and the thing is, I don't, I agree with this feminist writer, but in a different, not in the same way, obviously. But because actually, she's 34.
Yeah, that's crazy.
She looks much closer to 40. She looks way old. So she's not actually aging like a fine wine at all. The reality.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I want to see the writer in comparison though, because I'm pretty sure she
Oh,
don't
well.
look half of that.
Well, she's not a
And
bad
that's,
looking lady
and,
at
that, and
all.
that's what she's mad at.
There's
What,
nothing
the
wrong with
writer?
her. But I'm just saying technically the use of the term. Now, however, Liz
Yeah, but
McGuire,
I'm saying the whoever the writer is probably don't look half of that, and that's why she's pissed.
probably. And you know, just a little love for the chat. A little bit of love for you. Little love, yeah. Yeah. Not a bad looking lady. But once again, that's a young woman. That is a young woman. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is not an older woman. That is a young woman. She should look good, actually. But this person is upset. Here we have 3JT, whatever the hell a 3JT is. This person is upset because she doesn't like the idea that when women are over 30, they're considered done in Hollywood and unuseful. I don't, and of course she's being, you know, noisy about it. But however, I don't know that I disagree though, because Hollywood is pretty harsh to ladies, dude. It is.
I would say 30s being hyperbolic. 40, yes. But there's still plenty of actresses. I mean, most of the MCU ladies, the main ones, were in their 30s or whatever during that.
Yeah.
So I don't think it. I think that's exaggerating a bit, but again, it largely the point still stands. Yeah, Hollywood absolutely. Once a woman loses her visual appeal, her sexual market value, as Kevin Samuels would say, she gets kind of shuffled off to the side. And some women find a niche in playing matronly like roles at that age, right? Which
Sure.
is really young for that actually in real life, but in Hollywood life, that's right where their money is. Other women don't, and they just disappear. You never
Yeah.
really see them again.
Well, I think the mistake that was made by Liz McGuire is the fact that they thought she was older because she does look older. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit of mistake on that side. But it's odd that I'm agreeing with a feminist writer because in general, she's not wrong with her statement. And Hillary Duff has nothing to do with this. Keep her damn mouth, name out your
Well-
mouth, I'd say. But
Well, I
you
will
know,
say this also that she's not looking at, and I know some people will complain about this, but you have a lot of female actresses, and it's more likely to happen with female actresses than men who get on just because their looks. They're not
Oh,
good
yeah.
actresses.
that's
So
way too
once
much
you
that
get
happens, dude.
once you get to a certain age, what roles are you expecting for Megan Fox when Megan Fox is in her 50s?
It's
Like
true.
what roles are you expecting?
Well,
Come on.
mom or aunties or business lady,
But I'm
boss
saying,
lady, something like that.
but I'm saying, can she? And it's been proven. And also another thing that they're not talking about. A lot of them women, for whatever reason, they get to Hollywood. They live kind of rough. You see a lot of them. They fall apart
That
fairly quick.
Hollywood diet. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
That
yeah.
too. That Hollywood diet. They need to stop because look, we've seen women who can act and have taken care of themselves, and they still get roles. There are people who still want Angela Bassett to play Storm, and Angela Bassett is pushing 60. She doesn't look like it, but she is. Um, Marissa Tomei taking pretty good care of herself.
Yeah.
Everybody all of a sudden went from Aunt May to MILF May real quick, didn't it?
Yeah, no, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, but
So,
it's just that Hollywood diet. I mean, my cousin is an example of it. She went over to
yeah,
Hollywood when she was young. She was very fit and very good shape. And then she became scary skinny, dude. Scary skinny,
yeah,
right? And a lot of them do. And old Hillary here isn't. She just, maybe I don't know,
yeah.
too many drugs or just
Too
unfortunate
much makeup.
DNA, too much makeup. But she's not aging well, actually. 34-year-old woman who looks like she's 40. That's not good.
Well, at least from the neck up, from the neck down.
No,
Hey,
no, no. She's and dude, that you can
not bad.
find 50, 60-year-old women to look great from the neck down, dude. It's
Yeah,
because the
absolutely.
face is exposed all the time to the air and the sun, right?
Yeah,
But anyway, I get your point. I get your point. But I just thought it was a weird little article about poor old Hillary Duff
Here's
getting
the
bashed.
main conceit against that I have, and I think most people have, whether they know it or not, against things like feminism, where the complaint that this person's making is that it shouldn't. Basically, what they're saying is that it shouldn't matter, right, if she's older and looks this way or that way because she has value. She's a woman. I get that, and I don't necessarily disagree with the premise. But the basic conceit is you want a visual species like humanity to not notice and not comment and not make what's the word I'm looking for? Put value in visual beauty.
uh-huh.
Because in order for what they want, where people stop doing that, right? Because you can go on Twitter right now and find people telling people to stop objectifying quote unquote women.
Uh huh.
Okay, that's not possible, guys.
Yeah.
We are a visual species. We are attracted to things we find attractive. Very simple. I know it's crazy. It's a
Yeah.
crazy idea, but you're basically trying to fight with nature itself, and it's not going to work. You cannot win that battle. Stop trying. Stop. Just stop. Just take a step back
Yeah.
and stop.
Eric wants me to get him tickets to the next Top Gun movie. Stop it, Eric.
I'm
But
going to go see that movie, and I am going to ogle your cousin, Chester, just so we're clear.
fine. But I don't know why she doesn't look attractive anymore. But
She's pretty good for her age.
Art,
She ain't bad for
art.
her age.
she is my age. That's true.
Yeah.
But I mean, Hollywood does treat women differently. That is fair. And I know that some of them are having harder time than others. Like for instance, Margot Robbie, in her earlier movies we saw her in. That's a hottie, dude. That's a serious hottie, right? Margot Robbie. But damn, she's hitting that wall hard, dude. Hard. It's like,
I really liked her in one movie, that was Wolf of Wall Street. Everything else I've seen her in, I was just like, nah.
well, I'm not talking about her ability. I'm talking about her
No,
looks.
that's what I'm talking about.
But
Her
that
her
goes that
looks.
goes back to the point. Like, okay, you take away her looks, what the hell you got for Margot Robbie?
Not much.
It's
Yeah.
and it's not like a lot of those women can do a bunch of physical roles because we see how seriously they take those roles.
Yeah, well,
So
we have stunt doubles for that, Grimlock.
Well, that, in total fairness to a couple of them, that seems to be shifting. I see a lot of these women now are starting to at least maybe they're just being much more public about it. Get in the gym and get themselves in really good shape for those roles.
Some do.
I have a feeling that criticism finally made its way into Hollywood from somebody somewhere, and they have execs now who are telling these ladies, like, listen, we want you in this movie, you're great, but you gotta be in this amount of shape, right?
Yeah.
This is an action movie, you gotta look the part. We can't be having you out here with spaghetti arms. That looks
Right.
ridiculous.
I think Hillary's
Yeah.
keeping pretty good shape of herself, actually. She's doing a
She
good job.
is. She is.
And you're right, Elrod, 100%. That is true. They as soon as a sexy guy, they start hooting and hollering and wolf calling. Of course, that's what feminists do. But whatever. It's not big. I just thought it was interesting, so I put it up. Let's go on here. Oh, now, no, go ahead.
Green shows support for Johnny Depp. Says he, quote, will emerge with his good name and wonderful heart revealed to the world, end quote. Well, let's calm down with a wonderful heart. He did have a decently good name, at least to most people. I don't know if he should have, but he did. And he does deserve to have that restored because by everything, and I've been watching some of this trial, everything I've seen, everything I've heard, yeah, he's kind of a prick, but he's not an abuser.
No.
At least not a physical one, anyway.
No,
Maybe emotionally you can make the case, but not physically.
Yeah, I would change that word "wonderful" to "gentle."
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes, he's a very gentle,
man.
sensitive man,
He
Mr.
is.
Depp. Very sensitive man.
Although nobody, and I repeat that emphatically, no one can air fuck better than Evergreen. No one.
I wouldn't
I don't even know
know.
who she is.
For all of those who caught that reference. But she is a bit of a scrawny thing. But whatever. I put this up here mainly to kind of because I don't understand why the world's so interested in a freaking Amber Heard and Johnny Depp court trial. I don't get it. But
Because
whatever.
well, Chester, this one is easy. It literally had to go to trial, and it had to be a trial of two celebrities to get people to believe that men can be abused in relationships.
That's fair.
Yep.
It literally took this.
Although it's been going on forever. I get your point.
Yeah, the stats have been there for God knows how long, but because of feminists and stuff, you would get mocked for saying it out loud. You couldn't go on The View and remind, yeah, okay, 1 in 4 women may be a victim, but 1 in 5 men are also. You'd get booed off the freaking panel. Now because it's Johnny Depp, a guy most women would leave their husbands for. It's like, oh,
I mean,
really?
I would almost encourage it. He's got all kinds of money. I'd be like, listen, go ahead. Just go be rich. I'm happy for you.
Okay.
Yeah,
I kind of always thought that maybe the gay men going after him, but whatever. Go ahead, continue.
They probably does. Johnny's got a lot of options here.
I think he does. He does. That is true. But anyway, I'm going to put some hot water on so I can have some more coffee. You guys go ahead and give a small little dissertation of what's happening with this trial.
Well, let's start at the end. Everything that I shouldn't say everything. Nearly everything that Amber Heard's team has produced has been, if not completely exculpatory for Johnny, it's been barely anything negative. A lot of the stuff that they've tried to put forward as this great evidence, none of the witnesses I've seen so far, except for one who was literally her sister, who of course is going to lie for her, has said that they've seen anything remotely like violence from Johnny Depp towards her. Yeah, they've had fights and yelling matches or whatever, but nothing violent, nothing aggressive. This whole trial is a case study in feminine predatory behavior, in what a lot of people would be calling now, just as the meme, toxic femininity. But this is how females of our species decimate their prey, quote unquote, and Johnny was definitely her prey. They do it through subtle emotional manipulation. Because like Grimlock was saying, a lot of people don't believe that men could be abused in a relationship, or they'll make all kinds of excuses, or they'll say, well, why didn't he's physically stronger, he's a man, he's tougher, he's this. Listen, you can be the biggest, strongest man in the world. You're exactly 0 in strength if you refuse to use it. And if you whether you refuse to use it because of societal pressure or because of your own morals or what, it doesn't matter. If you will not use it, it doesn't matter how strong you are. So a lot of women really couldn't hurt. I mean, they can maybe they get you in the nose, that doesn't feel good, or the eye or something. But by and large, they're not going to really, in a physical altercation without a weapon, they're not going to probably be able to hurt you. But that's not the point. Because you could haul off and knock them out, but if you're unwilling to do that, then your power is effectively zero. Right? Your power at that moment is completely irrelevant. So people miss the point there. When you're in these situations where you have an abusive woman, or even just a partner, but seems to be more of a woman way of abusing, where they use a lot of gaslighting, they use a lot of reductive language, they call you a baby, they call you a pussy, or they basically challenge your manhood and do things like this. Most men, pretty much any man, if you're subjected to that for a very long period of time, it's going to get to you. It just is. Like, women know what button to press.
Oh yeah.
And for most men, I think the attack on your manhood constantly, like there's recordings of her mocking him because of his drug addiction, he couldn't get an erection. Mocking him for that. Making that publicly known. Things like this.
Dick.
That's just pure evil and venom. And a lot of female abusers, that's what they do. Now, she also did physical stuff too, and she just straight admits to it. Right, that I didn't punch you, I hit you. Whatever difference that makes.
She is mean. That is true.
Yeah, that is how a female abuser often will behave. Now, some will be physical. They'll be physically violent as well, but oftentimes men won't report that strictly because people don't believe it. But like I was saying, Chester, I don't know if you heard me, it doesn't matter how strong you are. You are exactly zero in strength if you refuse to use it. Yep. And most men just simply won't hit a woman. Right. No matter what she's doing to him, he just won't do it. Now, I'm not like that. You come at me with a weapon, especially, you're getting it. If I tell you to stop repeatedly and you refuse, you had your warning. But most men aren't like that. They were raised to never hit a woman. There's never an excuse, is what they were told by their mothers usually. And I think personally that's stupid, but that's hardwired into them. They've been brought up that way. And I think Johnny might even be one of those guys, because some of these recordings I've heard, man, I'd punch her. The things she's saying to him, the way she's treating him.
He's my generation for sure. No, I actually have examples of that working as a bouncer as long as I did. Especially strip clubs, it's always the women that are making the trouble. It's always. Whether the men are acting out because of them or the women themselves are acting out. It's always women because they have more freedom to do so. Men live in a more stricter environment. I have many times taken a makeshift weapon out of a woman's hand and sat her down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have to beat her.
Well, you don't have to beat him, but, you're Sean Connery him. Give him the open hand one. Just one time. It's usually all it takes.
Never even done that.
Well, you're a lot bigger than me, too. I've had women literally bigger than me come at me, and unfortunately, I had to defend myself.
Yeah,
but again, most men aren't going to be proud of it. Most men aren't going to. It's not something they want to do, and they'll try to avoid it. Like I tried to avoid it. The person who told me, "Listen, you need to hit that bitch," was my mother. so I said, "Okay, she does it again. Then I guess I have permission."
Carte blanche.
Yeah, stuff like that. And there's certain, like, Johnny's not a big guy. He's not a big dude. He's a normal sized guy, and he's definitely not a muscular man by any stretch of the imagination. So a woman of enough size, and there's some big women out there, she could maybe do damage to him especially if he's not ready for it. She catches him.
She has done damage to him.
Yeah.
Actually,
so
hospital needed damage. Yeah.
I think we need to get to this. First of all, we need women to understand men have a right to self-defense too, and it doesn't matter if you're weaker than them or not. Because if a little man comes up to you, a 5-foot guy comes up to you talking shit and starts swinging at you, what are you going to do to him? You're going to stop him. One way or the other, you're going to stop him.
I'm going to throw him out the window.
Yes, exactly. But it's the same thing. We have to stop with this idea that men aren't allowed to defend themselves from women. I think that's ridiculous, and I think it's because largely your generation, the way they were raised, because my grandpa's generation wasn't raised that way, why we have a generation, 2 generations now of women who are just completely fucking out of control because they have no fear of catching one when they're way out of line. Like Sean Connery said, when they're way out of line, and you warned them, now that's enough, and give him a slap. And he wouldn't back down from it. I respect the hell out of him for not backing down from it, to be honest with you, because there was a lot of pressure on him to back down, and like these interviews, like, no.
Yeah, I understand
Sometimes,
the value of it that way, and that's why I put it up here, because otherwise I don't give a shit. However, little guys are very convenient.
yeah.
Because what I always did was I always went to the right though, which is probably not a good thing. But I always do the right-handed boxer slip, so you can get that
Mm-hmm.
side shot. But I don't take the shot. I take that boxer step to the right, and I get my fingers and my hand around the back of their neck, my fingers up in the bone of the skull,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I kind of lever my wrist forward and just lift them up. That hurts
Like
like
a
son of a
cat.
bitch, dude. Oh, that hurts like son of a bitch. And they stop. They stop. They
Right.
stop whatever they're doing. But that's a good thing about little dudes because I can take them off their feet with a single hand, right? Whereas a bigger
Right.
dude, that's not as easy to do.
Yeah, I think there's a serious problem. Um, One of the problems is a lack of masculinity. Men have been told they're not allowed to express their masculine urges for a very long time.
Hmm.
I know it was happening to me even in school.
I didn't listen.
Schools, yes, schools try to, at least the schools I went to, except for in high school, try to teach young men to basically be girls in a way because they want you to behave and learn like a female does. Well, I think a lot of young men would rather learn through rough and tumble. They'd rather learn through physicality than they would through sitting in a room all day. And I think we're starting to see this play out in society now. We have a generation or two who was raised that way. I know from experience, one of the reasons I stopped caring about school was because it never really mattered how good I did, because they would still always praise the girl. Like, for instance, I could have easily been the valedictorian of my school, easily. And everybody knew it, including the one who won it, and she literally thanked me for not taking it, because she wanted it so badly. And I told her, the only reason I didn't is because it wouldn't matter if I did. They want you to do it because she was a model student. She never caused those teachers any headaches. I always did because I'd argue with them, but she didn't. She did all she was the perfect little student. So that's who they wanted. And we have a society now that this trial is actually putting a light on a big problem, and that is the complete demasculinization of men, and the fact that our way of resolving conflict has been so demonized that now in schools, and we've told you this, Chester, even if you just defend yourself, you get expelled.
Oh, that was
Just
going
defend
on when I was
yourself.
a kid too. That was going on when
Yeah,
I was a kid too.
that's
It's stupid.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's utterly ridiculous on
It's-
every level,
yeah.
and it shouldn't be tolerated in any kind of sane society.
Yeah, zero tolerance. Yeah, and
Yeah.
Alan over here says, "I'm a little guy. I'll kick you in the balls and let go of my purse." Okay, let's test it, Alan. Let's test it. I'll meet you in Indianapolis.
Well, Elrod says no matter what, the law will side with the woman. That's not true anymore. I know from personal experience that's not true anymore. If the woman instigates it and you can prove it, a lot of times the law will side with you, depending on where you're at, of
It has
course.
changed a little bit, but the punishments are still
Yeah.
light. But the thing,
Oh yeah.
and I do want to move on from this story, but the thing with it is this: she has lost public opinion 100%.
Yep.
She is vilified, and rightly so, because she's a nasty little human, right? However, I still say, because I did go watch it because everyone seems to be interested in it, so I wasted my time looking into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I still say it's gonna be very hard for Johnny to win this case, dude.
No, I don't think he wins the case. I think if he does win it, it'll basically just be yeah, you win, but you don't get anything, is what they'll find. But regardless, I think he's won in the court of public opinion.
He has.
So I think he'll get his career back, basically. And in all honesty, Warner Brothers, man, they can suck dick, because there is no reason after everything that's happened, especially now, they haven't, one, completely fired her, and two, reinstated him if he wants to be reinstated to the contract he was on. It's ridiculous that it had to get, like Grimlock was saying, it had to get to this level before anybody would believe him. That's a problem.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
And it's gone to where, I mean, like you said, look at the behavior. Depp was immediately fired from everything on allegation. We've seen pictures, we've heard video, we've heard audio, we've seen all these things, and they're still keeping her employed. It's like, well, is that not hypocritical as fuck?
It is,
because going the other way, you're firing men on simple allegation. You're not putting them on leave. You're not giving nobody the benefit of the doubt. I haven't heard not one single person say, "Well, we'll see how the process plays out." It's like, nope, he's immediately removed.
Yeah, no, yeah, that is true. And Alan, you can't kick me in the balls if you don't have a leg, bitch. Okay.
He's already going with the Wookiee strategy.
That's right. No, it's fun. It's funny. All right, let's move on from this dumb shit. You ever just have sex with air demons more. Just do more of that. More. Okay. All right.
Disney and Marvel Studios to create new Daredevil series. One report claims it will continue the Netflix series. That is from John Delarose.
It is.
Apparently he's writing for them now.
Good on you, John. And he should.
Good for John. See, I'm the one who's, on the outside of this. I never liked the Daredevil series. I know a lot of people did. Just completely never. It just didn't do it for me. I've tried. I'm going to try and watch it again, and maybe it will now. But when I watched it the first time, I got like 2 or 3 episodes in, and I was good. I was bored. I shut it off. Same thing happened with Game of Thrones. I watched 3 episodes, shut it off. I was bored.
Wow. Yeah, Game of Thrones was good for several seasons. Daredevil, it's a TV show. It's a good TV show. That's what it is. Yeah, it's not anything more. And I hope it's good.
I'll believe it when I see it. I have no faith in Disney at all.
No.
Outside of a couple of race and gender swaps, I have no gripes about Daredevil. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I thought D'Onofrio was as good a casting for Wilson Fisk as you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, D'Onofrio is awesome.
It's kind of, I'm just gonna say it. The Netflix series really showed how weak the writers up at the top when it comes to the movies are with writing their villains, because I would say their better villains came from the Netflix series. D'Onofrio as Kingpin, David Tennant as Kilgrave, I thought was spectacular, because by episode 4 of season 1 of Jessica Jones, I wanted to kill the guy.
Right, but the problem was the only good thing in that was him. Right?
Yeah, he was great.
Same thing with Luke Cage. The only thing really good in that was Cottonmouth, and they killed him halfway through the season. First season.
They shouldn't have. They really shouldn't have. They jumped to Luke's brother. I thought they jumped way too fast into that.
Yeah, no, because
I thought they should have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that they should have stretched that out a little bit further.
Well, the difference with this though, Grimlock, is with Cox here. This guy, he actually is good as Daredevil, where the other things, the lead characters weren't good. Their villains were.
Yeah.
So I understand why they're choosing this one.
I didn't have a problem with the castings for Jessica Jones. I mean, for she definitely looked the part.
No, she didn't. She didn't look the part at all. What the hell? She's got these weird wonky hips, and they got her in leather biker outfit. What the hell? That's not Jessica Jones at all.
Oh, they shouldn't have had her in the biker outfit. I won't fight that one, but I didn't have a problem with much of the castings for those. I had more of a problem with the portrayal of some of the characters. Like, I thought, like I said, I thought that they jumped too quickly out off of Luke Cage because Luke Cage kind of suffers from what a lot of black characters suffer. He doesn't have a good rogues gallery, and that's a problem. Jessica Jones has a similar problem. You take Kilgrave away from her, and then what did you have?
Right. No,
Um,
that's true. You had nothing. But I see what you're saying, and you're not wrong. But let's compare Daredevil to Luke Cage. Okay.
yeah,
Um, Daredevil is the character that Charlie Cox put forward. He's often calm and understated because he's a lawyer and he's blind, right? But when he loses his shit, he loses his shit, dude, right?
yeah,
Whereas Luke Cage, he's very understated and calm, the kind of the noble black man type of thing, which is cool. Nothing wrong with that.
but he didn't
Uh,
have that. He didn't have those loses shit moment that
no,
he
he
should have
did
had.
not. No charisma. No,
It,
no enticing. Hey, this dude is cool. None,
but
none.
like I said, that's how they write black characters now. It's like you could just get fucked over royal, and he's like, I'm mad. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah, it's
believe that. That
ridiculous.
doesn't sound it. It's
But
like, come on, dude.
imagine that storyline where he's going and he's taking all the drug dealers out in that area in Harlem, right? And
Yeah,
during that, he's just ripping, just tearing people apart, just going freaking mad, just absolutely aping on it, right? But then afterward, he gets pushback from that. He has real problems from that. That would have been a much more in depth and endearing character arc than what we got. Him calmly like,
yeah.
okay, yeah, punch, okay, dude, yeah, punch, okay, dude. It's boring.
Yeah.
They're afraid to write them. They're afraid to write black characters and female characters with like those kind of moments because it's like, oh, what you doing the angry black man stereotype? I'm like, wait, you just burnt down the man's house, killed one of his
Yeah.
friends. You
He's
don't
got a
get
right to
pissed
be
off.
pissed. Yeah, for sure. For absolutely, absolutely. So I was really disappointed with everything other than Daredevil. It's not perfect. It has its problems, but it's overall pretty good. And the guy the bad guys are great. Like when the
Yeah,
Punisher was brought in as a bad guy, it was a good choice, dude. It worked. And the season 1 of Punisher was good. The season 2 was like, have you never read Punisher?
yeah.
I mean, it's so stupid. But whatever. All we can do is, I don't know. I don't even hope anymore. Did you guys see the trailer for She-Hulk?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I knew they was gonna fuck it up. I just wanted to
Well,
see how
Uh,
badly they
well,
was gonna fuck it up.
I don't know that they fucked it up. What they've done
Oh, they
is once
fucked it
again,
up.
well, they've made a rom-com, right? Is what they've done. It's the Sex in the City storyline with She-Hulk. Now, that's not
That
necessarily a bad thing. It's not for us, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. However, I don't know that the ladies who enjoy Sex in the City are going to bite on green version of it.
it's not even that. It's like I think they don't know their demographics. I would say Marvel has just as many male fans who was fans of She-Hulk as women.
Hmm.
Two, the second thing is the dialogue more so than the CGI is shit, but I've come
It
to
is.
expect that from Marvel. I don't know how with a company like Disney who they've basically contracted all the big CGI firms,
they own them.
studios, or whatever. Yeah, if they don't own them, they've got contracts with them, and it's like, how is it that you guys are consistently putting out this level of bad
Yeah.
with this stuff? And everybody's like, oh well, maybe it'll be better. Really, with a release date of less than 3 months? You think so? I don't.
No, it's beyond the pale for that. It's just bad CG. You got to deal with it.
But
But
it
it's cheap. They didn't spend a lot of money on it, I think.
the dialogue was more infuriating than anything. The
Well,
part where and it's the part where she just flats out shits on the Avengers. I found the most irritating of all
oh
because I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and I knew this was gonna happen because of fucking Dana Schwartz. I knew that nothing was gonna come from that. I'm just gonna say nothing good was gonna come from that bitch being a writer because the stuff that I seen from her, this woman is just about as pleasant to be around as having a UTI infection.
Yeah, no,
It,
that's fair.
you
Yeah,
you
that's
you
fair.
don't
Yeah, no, I get you. I hear you, dude. I just don't think it's for us, but whatever. But the thing about shitting on the Avengers was odd, especially because you're still trying to sell the Avengers.
And
Yeah,
and
here's
the
another
the
good bad
stupid
guy, by
line
the way.
about being a woman was another thing. It's like,
Oh, that
eh,
yeah. Women are naturally angry and frustrated. Really, not the ones I know.
considering that that's not Jennifer Walters' personality at all, but okay,
Yeah,
whatever.
well, like I said, this movie's not for us at all. I liked what they did with
Yeah.
Elektra and Daredevil. What'd you guys think of Elektra and Daredevil?
Like I said, I had no problem other than the race swap and gender swap that they did for a couple of characters. I really have nothing negative to say
Yeah.
about Daredevil. It was one of the few times it's like, oh shit, they got it right.
Yeah, no, I don't think she sells the fighting Elektra well because she's scrawny. But the dialogue stuff, I thought she was a good choice for Elektra. But anyway, if they bring it back, it's the same cast or same people, and they bring back the original showrunners. You could have something good here. You could, but a lot of ifs there. Is Ben back yet?
No. Well,
Okay,
they've got the actor, whatever his name is.
Charlie.
Um, yeah, they've got him. So there's step one. I just don't want another series, man. I really want a Daredevil Spider-Man movie. They already put them together there. They're already in the same world. Just do it. Just do it. Like they've taken Spider-Man basically out of the big stuff, right out of the big overarching plots, or at least it seems they have. So just do a down to earth, street level Spider-Man and Daredevil story. It could be whatever you want it to be about. Maybe even have Kingpin in there. Just do it, man. We've never really gotten that from Spider-Man. I mean, I guess maybe the first movie kinda with Goblin, but not really. Something about the crime and the crime families and the mob and all that stuff that they just. Why haven't we gotten that from a Spider-Man film?
Yeah,
Why not?
Magia film for sure with Daredevil would be good.
Yeah.
But I mean that scene where D'Onofrio has Charlie and he's got him held up and he's smashing him on the table. Oh my god, dude, my god! Because the thing about D'Onofrio, he's a great actor, so he speaks the part well, he looks the part well, but he can do the physical too. It's like, damn, dude, he triple threat. Anyway, let's move on here. I was kind of I'll save this a little bit for maybe Ben will come back because it's really a Ben article. Let's go to this one.
Lord of the Rings actor Viggo Mortensen questions what source material Amazon is using for the Rings of Power series. So do we. So does everybody, Viggo.
Well,
Sir
Vigo,
Mortensen.
yeah, they're not because they don't have
They're
the
just
rights.
making it up.
Yeah, they don't
Yeah.
have the rights to it. Actually, it turns
It's
out.
it's basically the first Men in Black movie where the alien puts on the skin suit and walks around as if he's a human being and he's got bugs and everything. That's basically what they're doing with Lord of the Rings, right? It's got Lord of the Rings skin, but there's nothing Lord of the Rings about it other than
Yeah.
names.
No, that's true. Yeah, and because they just don't own the rights to it. So
Yeah.
it's like your question is, well, why are you doing it then?
Why did you spend
whatever.
$500 million on this?
Oh yeah.
People complaining about Elon Musk buying Twitter. He spent so much money, bruh.
Feed the
What about
poor.
Amazon? What
Yeah,
about Amazon?
we give billions to the transgenders. Why don't we use that to feed the poor? Feed the
Oh,
poor. But
now you're
okay,
just talking crazy.
I know. But mainly, we already know the answer to this. I just put it up to it because, I haven't seen Vigo in a while, and I just want to say hi,
Hi, Vigo.
hi, Vigo.
You were fantastic
In
as
many
Aragorn.
things, I do love
Many
you.
things, but especially as Aragorn. Fantastic.
Yeah. My favorite Vigo Mortensen movie. I think it's called Dialgo.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, he's a good actor, man. And he's been around for a while. You go back and you look at his career, this dude's been doing stuff far longer than you thought. It's kind of like Jared Leto, actually.
The
Jared
crazy
Leto,
thing about Vigo is he's kind of perfect for Aragorn because he's very much a ranger type person in real life.
yeah,
Like he's an outdoorsman and stuff. He likes to fish. He likes to hunt. He likes to ride horses. Like that's perfect.
yeah. No, that's why they
Perfect
picked him for
casting.
that. Dialga
Yeah.
movie. Yeah, that's true. I meant I like Vigo much more than I do Leto. However,
Yes.
Jared Leto has been in way many things than you realize. Going way back to the '80s, dude. He was kind of in the Johnny Depp group, actually.
Yep.
But he just kind of was unrecognized until much more recently, till he did that gay movie. But now Jared Leto, we need to do a TFT on that boy because he's my age and he looked good. He looks real good for being my age. That dude is.
Listen, Chester, it's happened. I agree with Elrod
Oh
over
wow.
here in the chat. He says She-Hulk was only ever good in people's minds. Those comics were always comically bad, so it's not tough to improve on. He's a little harsher than I'd be, but yeah, I agree. I've never got the appeal of She-Hulk. Never once has it done anything to me but just been meh at
Big
best.
green
Well, we can mark
titties.
this day down on the calendar. Sundar was wrong.
Yeah.
Especially you agree with him.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But he is doing a Cronenberg movie, and I don't think I can handle it, Alan. I don't think I can handle it. Because it's freaking Cronenberg, and he's been let loose with money, and I no, no, no. Yeah. But Vigo is an actor, so
Or
of course he's going to do that. But like I said, I just put this up here to say hi to Vigo, man, because I haven't seen him in a while. You're right, though. He is doing that Cronenberg movie, but I like Vigo. He's cool.
I do too.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Viggo Mortensen. First of all, he's got a great name, Vigo.
Yes.
Vigo.
Yes.
It's a good name.
He should have been
Strong
Ghostbusters.
name.
He should have been Ghostbusters too.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, let's move on. I'll save this to the last second to see if Ben comes back in. But this right here.
Dying Light developer Techland announces next project: AAA open world fantasy action RPG.
Mm,
Now, Ryan, buddy, you used a comma and then you just forgot commas exist. Explain,
yes,
Ryan.
it's okay.
Explain.
They're not very grammatic these days. But anyway, Techland. Techland's a little company that has had a lot of success. They did some kind of Mexican Western thing. I can't remember, the Juarez or something like that. It was actually pretty, looked really good. It was pretty good. They had like that Zombie Island game that came out that was a lot of fun. I didn't play Dying Light. It did look interesting, parkour with zombies. Although the first game, people really had it seemed to have an aesthetic and a really good kind of scary feel to it. The second one, I'm not hearing many good things about because they went much more parkour in the city, other than running through dark areas to not get eaten. But whatever. These guys have had them some success. They are a smaller company, but they've had some success. I'd say everything they made has been pretty good. And therefore, uh, I'm kind of on board, man. I kind of hope it'll be cool. Coming out of a non a world, open world fantasy action RPG that's coming out of not Asia. Okay, yeah, I'm on board for that. And they gave us a picture. That's it. There's your picture.
Get one picture
You
and
got a
you'd like
picture,
it.
and you will like it. That's your picture. Take it.
Doesn't suck.
It doesn't
Does look
suck.
good.
It doesn't suck. Although it does kind of have that Asian feel.
One thing I will say that I'm leery of happening lately, and I see this maybe as a coming problem, is you have a lot of fantasy games or fantasy worlds being built that, because they're fantasy, the creators of them think that they don't need to make some kind of sense. And this isn't really a good example of it. It's just something I'm leery of, and I don't like that. I think you want fantasy and you want it to be fantastical, but there still has to be a logic to it. There still has to be, like, if you're making a world where you're out here and you're fighting a bunch of monsters, but then you basically never see anybody else. Right? There's no cities, there's no towns or whatever. It's just fighting monsters. What? Why am I doing that? Like, you see my point? You get my point? We're right on this cusp, but I'm starting to see this trend that I don't like. I think The Witcher 3 is the perfect example of the way to do it correctly.
Right.
Because when you go into towns or to cities or to villages, they feel like real places. This place makes sense. I believe these people live here around these monsters.
Yep.
A lot of what's happening now in these fantasy things, they're starting to become too fantastical to where the logic of the world is gone. It's absent.
Yeah.
And I think that's a problem, and I hope, because if it doesn't get reined back in, you're going to really kill off the fantasy audience.
Yeah.
Because as stupid as some people are when it comes to their entertainment, and that's their opinion, that's their prerogative, I think most people still want to watch things that at least tangentially make sense when you watch it, right? Stuff fits. And if it doesn't, you not only lose the attention, you lose their ability to suspend their disbelief. Because we're already looking at something fantastical, but if it then starts triggering off a bunch of things in my brain of, well, that doesn't work, that wouldn't work, stuff like that,
Right.
if it pulls me out of it because something is just so ridiculous, that's where you lose me. And I think a lot of people are like me. You lose them real quick if you get too fantastical.
Well, the rule is very simple. You get one suspension of disbelief. One.
Yep.
Magic
Yep.
is real. Jedis exist. Whatever. You get one.
Right.
And that's it. If you do more, you're starting to lose people. Even if it's subconsciously, you're starting to lose people. And that's a problem. Another thing which you're kind of going into, which I wanted to say earlier with Ben, but I forgot, with, say, Destiny is a good example, the Destiny 1 game. A lot of these games these days, they're so concerned about the gear. They're so concerned about the mob fights. They're so concerned about get 10 of that or 20 of that, that they forgot to populate their world with just people, right?
Things and people.
They're empty. They feel empty. And that's one of the things that I wanted to say about City of Heroes. There are just as many people running around that world as there are in Champions or other games. Just as many. Matter of fact, Champions probably has more. However, that game, as you're walking around, you see newspaper sellers. You see people using the telephone. You
Right.
see people sitting in a cafe. You see people walking down the street. People driving cars. People getting mugged. You see the world happening, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in, say, Champions, as an example, uh, people aren't happening. They're just walking. They're there, unless you're on a mission to get 10 things, and the NPC is involved in the 10 things. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is one of the problems we're seeing is the worlds have become very empty and sterile. You need that kind of development. I mean, and I think that's one of the things that really kicks with City of Heroes. Sorry, I went back to this, but it's a good example because there are
No, it is a good example.
well, yeah,
You're
because
right.
there's so many little things going on in that world that have nothing to do with you at all. Nothing.
Right. Exactly. And when a lot of games, and this has been a problem for a long time in open world games, they give you things to do, but it comes off as the only reason that thing exists is because it's something for me to do. It doesn't just exist and I get to go do it.
Right.
Right? This is a activity I can do in the game. One of the problems Cyberpunk 2077 has is that problem.
Yeah.
The world itself, they've done a lot of improvements. It's a lot better. I actually recommend playing it now. But the world itself still doesn't feel totally like a city.
No.
Not totally. It's close. I think if they keep working on it, I think they'll get it, which is crazy this far in. But that's a big problem. The reason why I referenced The Witcher 3 is because I think they did this nearly perfectly. They did it very, very well. Especially when you get to the bigger cities, they feel like cities. There's people around doing stuff. They're just doing it because that's what they do. Right? That's their life in the world. And it sounds like a city, and it has the architecture makes sense like a city. You have to ground your stuff in some logic. Now, that logic can be completely alien, right, to Earth.
Sure.
That's fine, but it still has to be there. And this is what I worry about with a lot of these fantasy games. I'm starting to see it where it's starting to make less and less sense, and you're supposed to just accept it because it's fun to play.
Right. Yeah. And like there's a lot of games where you're walking along. And we're talking about open world stuff here. And someone says something, but the person says something to get your attention, right?
Yep.
Whereas, once again, with City of Heroes, I think this is kind of building on what this game is so freaking awesome. As you walk around, people are constantly talking to each other, and it comes up in little word boxes, right? And just
Right.
constantly talking to each other. You don't have to pay attention; it's just noise, but they're interacting with each other. Now, if you pay attention, a lot of times it's giving you kind of an idea of what's going on in the area, and it might lead you to some kind of opportunity, maybe. But the people are constantly chatting about their day or what they're doing, or did you see this? There's this
Right.
constant chatter, and it's going on the side of you, and you don't have to pay attention to it, but you can if you want. But it builds into the believability and the reality, and I think that's another thing it really kicks with that game because uh, it it's just a city, right? That you're moving
Yeah.
around because its one suspension of disbelief is that superheroes exist. That's
Right.
it. Everything else is normal. And if you go to Champions or DC Online or anything else, they go. There's too many suspension of disbelief, and your brain starts conflicting with it. And you could take this into a fantasy example or a sci-fi example as
Yep.
well, because you can't do that. You need to have your one conceit, and that's it. Go forward with it. Now, this game, however, since you've mentioned a few times, I should bring into the light here with Techland. They are a small company, but clearly they have enough money that they poached CD Projekt Red people because the
Yeah.
guys who made Witcher and some of the guys who were involved in the Cyberpunk game are making this. Hmm,
Interesting.
interesting. Yeah. I have a feeling that Techland here has made enough money that they're taking a bite at the apple, dude. And I wish them luck. I wish them luck. The
Me
open
too.
world,
Me
yeah.
too.
The open world director is previously from Cyberpunk and The Wild Hunt, so he's been poached. Their creative director is from Ubisoft. Prince of Persia, Saying the Time, Mad Max was better. And a Microsoft guy. We have Dave McClure here, lead game designer. He is from Arcane Studios, Deathloop, Playground Games. Kevin Quaid, he's 8 years as an animator. He's going to be their lead animator, working on stuff as Horizon Zero Dawn. Now, I'm not into the Horizon thing. I just wasn't that interested in it, but it looks good and it's quite popular. You know,
It's good.
you yeah, the UI guy is I don't know who this guy is. Oh, here's that Juarez game. I think it's called Juarez. Yeah, a Call of Juarez, Gunslinger. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
It wasn't a bad little game, dude. And that's from way back, and it still looks good. Look at it. It's not a bad looking game,
Yeah.
dude. I have my fingers crossed. I hope this is still a small enough company that they might do something cool. The problem with the big actual AAA companies is they've got caught up in the politic and they have HR departments, right?
Yes.
I
Yeah,
don't
that's a
think
big problem.
it is. And I don't think Techland's big enough to have an HR department, dude. They might do.
Good.
There's a Polish company, by the way, just so you know. But they're also a Polish company, so you know. Therefore, they're not stupid like that.
Well,
Uh,
remember what I was worried about with Cyberpunk 2077? I kept saying that CD Projekt Red has been listening to Western people, especially in marketing and things, and they're putting out these like very progressive talking point type deals with this game. Like it had that tinge to it, and it worried me that they had been in effect corrupted in a way, to be dramatic about it. And lo and behold, we see what happened with that game. Now, I'm not saying that's
yeah.
a 1-to-1 correlation, but I think it was
Well,
part of the equation. So hopefully, this isn't a problem with this company because I just don't. There's not a company right now I guess you could say FromSoft, but those games don't appeal to me. So
Right.
for me, there's not a company that I just is yes. I'm ready to go with you, like I was with CD Projekt Red. I mean, this is the company, CD Projekt Red, that because The Witcher 2 was so successful, the second Witcher game, and so popular, they literally gave it away for free. Even if you pirated it, they would let you update it for free.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they wanted more. The PR was better than the not bad
Yes.
PR.
Yes.
But no, it's a fair point you're making. And do keep in mind that CD Projekt Red got into the they're very there's some very serious crunch that goes on over there at that company. And fair enough, you got to get it done. But they were getting a lot of pushback. Keep in mind the the progressives these days are screaming and yelling that you are a Nazi if you do not believe that more than a 3-day work week is slavery. Okay, but they came under the oculus of that pretty heavily, and I think that was what bent them. Yeah,
Probably.
yeah,
Probably. And it's a shame because they had you. There is no amount of money in the world that could have bought the goodwill that they squandered. And it's a shocking to me that there hasn't been serious repercussions to that company on maybe even illegally, because oh boy, did they had the gaming world. They had them. They had
they
all of
did.
us.
They screwed up big time, dude. They screwed up really big time.
Yeah.
There are a lot of little indie companies doing really good. But Grimlock, did you like the way I used that eye metaphor there? Did you like that? That was clever.
Yeah.
Oh,
Beautiful.
thank you.
Beautiful.
Any
Yeah.
opinions?
I didn't have. Um, I hope Techland, whatever their next project is, does well. I don't care for Dying Light. That's not my kind of game, but
Mm,
a lot of people liked it.
yeah.
So
Yeah. I like
whatever their
Call.
next.
Yeah,
What
no,
was
I
you gonna
do.
say?
Yeah, no, me too. I did like that Call of Juarez, and that little zombie island game was fun. My
Yeah,
point is, we have a company that's got enough money to poach some pretty big names, but I
yeah,
don't think they're big enough to have the woke problem yet. Because if you go look in the indie side of things, the roguelites and all those kind of games like that, there's a lot of great stuff. A lot of great stuff. And the great thing about that community is you can find something that's like this ultra macho Viking thing, or you can find something that's like a soft little transgender gay dating sim, right? And that's great. There's nothing wrong with any of that because everyone's doing
yeah,
their own thing in their own way. And that's as it should be, right? It's when they get too big and they get those HR departments that they start becoming troublesome.
Well, and then they start trying to go after the mythical broader audience. Has that ever worked?
Not
Where
yet.
they've
no,
made it,
No.
especially in gaming, has that ever worked where they've really been like, we're going to go after this broader audience, we're going to do this, and make that a big push, and it worked? The only one I could think of that maybe you could say worked would be Skyrim, but that is largely due to the fact that Skyrim on its own, if you took away the Elder Scrolls series before it, if you put Skyrim on its own, it would have been fine. It would have
Yeah,
still
Morrowind is
been
still
very
better.
successful.
Morrowind is
Well,
still better.
yes, of course. But it was still been very successful even on its own. So my point I'm making here is that first, if you want to get a broader audience, first you have to make a good game. That's one. That's step one in all of these transactions and all of these exchanges and all of these interactions. You have to make a good game.
Yep,
If you make
that's
the
true.
good game, the audience will typically come. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but usually the audience shows up when the game is good. Again, CD Projekt Red's the perfect example. They were a small company. They were basically only making the Witcher games, right?
Yep.
Comparatively, they were a small company. The first Witcher game was it was okay. The second Witcher game was freaking phenomenal. Because the second Witcher game was freaking phenomenal, and because they kind of, in a way, almost embraced piracy as a marketing strategy, um, the third game sold ridiculously well. and was a genuine masterpiece. One of
Yeah.
maybe the best game ever made.
Man, my son loves that game.
This step one is to make a really, really good game. There is no amount of marketing in the world that is more valuable than word of mouth. None.
That's true.
Ever. And if you make a really, really, really good game, Halo's another great example. Halo, the first Halo, was the game for a very long time in the early 2000s. It was the game. Everybody was playing it. It was basically the Mario Brothers of its day.
Yeah, that's true.
It was, I mean, I remember personally having LAN parties with it. We'd take our Xboxes and our TVs over to our buddy's house and hook them all up and play, because you couldn't play online. So you play that way.
And you call me a nerd. How dare you, sir?
But my point is, the step one is always to make a really, really, really good game. If you make a really, really, really good game, you will reach that broader audience if the audience is there at all. If the audience isn't interested when you make an actual masterpiece, then they're just not interested.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's okay, guys. It's okay.
It is, but speaking of that, I mentioned this to you before. I don't think I said it live, but there's a game coming out called Pantheon, right?
Yep.
And it's they're putting a lot of love in that game over there. I actually work with them a little bit. I did some writing for some of the, when you pick up a book off a shelf and it has some little stories bits in it. I did work like
Sure.
that for them, and that game could be exactly what we want. We'll
Mhm.
see. We'll see. I have a feeling they have a little bit too much of this is old school, old school. Old school isn't always the better school,
That's
right?
true.
We'll see. But that I know probably none of you ever heard of this game, but it could be something. We'll have to wait and see. But I have big hopes for these guys. I hope they make something awesome. I hope they make something fun.
Me
And
too.
it reminds me when I was talking last week, we were talking about Microsoft had made mistakes, and I couldn't remember of course, we mentioned with Gaddy where he went over to Bullet Rasa, but also it came back to me here as we're talking the Ultima EverQuest debacle. Right, they
Mm.
were trying to bring that back, and they were put a lot of money. And this is not that long ago, like a decade or more. And they were putting a lot of money and time, and that thing just fell apart, dude. It just fell apart. That was a very big Microsoft bungle, right? But in general, Microsoft, I think, wants to be successful, unlike other
Yep.
companies. So, and I really don't understand why EA still exists. I don't.
Sports games,
Yeah, but
largely.
but the thing is, how long has it been since Madden has actually improved? How long?
Oh God, it's done nothing but get worse in the last few years.
Well, because I played a very recent version here, past three year version, 2020 or something like that,
Hmm.
and I was playing it, and I was like, well, this sucks, because I remember 22 years ago with Madden 2000 had all the features that they have in this game and more, and it was
Yeah,
smoother and less wonky 22 years ago.
yeah, yep. I remember Madden. I think it was the one that came out in 2004. Was just it was. I've played a bunch since then, and it's still my favorite one. It just played so well. It was
Yeah.
smooth like butter. It had every feature you could want. I think it was 2004's. It had every feature you could want. And the newer ones just don't even come close. And when you in the part that matters, when you're playing the damn game, when you're playing the football should be way better now than it was then.
You would think
Just
so. Yeah,
physics engines alone are so much better than they were then,
but it's
and
not
yet somehow,
wonky. Yeah.
yeah,
And it's weird because I remember playing Madden way back in, like, what, late 80s, early 90s, with
yep,
my buddies. We played all the time, and we had a lot of good fun with Madden, even back in those days. I think it was the early 90s. And the one I saw in 2000 was better. It was cleaner. It had more stuff. It had like you could do a career option, you could do like an owner option and build your own stadium and stuff, that kind of stuff. You also could have non NFL teams and kind of do that kind of play. But I just the one I tried was like 2 years ago version, and it's nowhere near as good, and I don't understand that. FIFA I know is where their main money is with EA. But FIFA is getting a lot of flack because it's just a freaking slot machine now. That's all it
Yeah,
is. And people are
yeah.
complaining that the mechanics haven't improved either. Same complaint with Madden. The Star Wars games are god awful, dude. God awful. So
Well,
why?
there's also way less of them. Back in the day, 15 years ago or whatever, there was multiple Star Wars games coming out a year, multiple, and now few and far between. And the ones that do are usually, well, they
Well,
suck.
well, they do because all they are is instant-based multiplayer, tower charges. That's all they are. That's it. Or us versus them charges, like Team Fortress or something like that. The
Right.
graphics aren't bad, but there's no story there. There's no game to play. If you're not into the multiplayer, shoot 'em up arenas, you're not into it, right?
Right.
Now, I understand that there's a market for that, and having one of your Star Wars games be that, sure, go ahead. But they're all that.
Did you play Fallen Order?
No, but that's not EA, is it?
Yeah, it is.
It is EA. I heard
It's
good
one of their
things.
companies underneath of them, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's what
EA.
it wasn't EA directly. It was indirect. Okay.
Yeah,
I heard that was pretty good. Yeah.
it is pretty good,
Yeah.
but it's very much a Souls-like game, meaning it has very similar. It even has like they don't have campfires, obviously, but it's the same basic idea.
Right.
So it's very similar to that, very much in that vein, but it's still pretty good. I played through it. I enjoyed it. We'll see if the second one's as good or better or whatever happens, but that's really about it for as far as good Star Wars game. And I'm just saying good. I'd give it like a 7.5. It's not a masterpiece or anything, but it's fine. Storyline's pretty decent. The ending's awesome.
Yeah.
But other than that, there hasn't been anything like blow me away in the Star Wars genre in God.
A
Oh, I
long
don't.
time. Long time. Yeah.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Almost 20 years,
Yeah.
and that's terrible.
It is terrible, and because it's another wasted IP. We're talking about
Yep.
superhero games and stuff like that. It's another wasted IP, and look what they're doing. They're bringing back the old Republic, right?
Yep.
And they're not giving us a third installment,
No, no,
right? No,
no,
of course not. They're not remastering the original. No, no,
no, no,
they're
no.
remaking it with
Yeah,
ladies.
yeah. I don't know why you're
That's what
being
everybody
difficult.
wants. Everybody wants
Clearly,
that. Clearly.
clearly.
Yeah.
No, what everybody actually wanted was a remaster, an actual full remaster with because the graphics of that game are, whoo boy, they're bad.
Yeah, sure.
So
Or
a
just a
full
part
remaster
3, dude. Just part 3.
that would be great too. Because there was a guy in the Unreal Engine 4. He was doing that, right? It was just I think it was like some little small team. They were trying to basically just bring that game into Unreal 4 so it would have much better graphics, and EA shut him down. EA said you're not allowed to do that. We can't be having you do that. It's it's a threat to our
Right.
IP and blah
Yep.
blah blah blah. And then they come out with this remake or whatever you want to call it, and it's like that's not what we want, guys. I'm fine. I'd be fine with them releasing a genuine remastered version of it where they just update the graphics and the sound quality and things like that. But otherwise, it's basically the same game. But that's not what they're doing. And that is very, very troubling to me because, or like you said, give us KOTOR 3. You set up KOTOR 3 at the end of KOTOR 2. Yes, I understand you have the Old Republic Online, but that has largely been completely decanonized. So who cares? Just give
Right.
us KOTOR 3.
Yeah, I know it's weird. Spend your money in the right place. I suppose it might be cheap. I don't think it will be cheaper actually. But I mean, you have other things like Last of Us. The original Last of Us is being remade. Why?
Yeah.
Already?
Why? It looks great. You don't need to remake that. Of course, the reason I want to remake it is because it'll make sure you understand that Ellie's gay. You need to understand that that little 10-year-old girl, 8-year-old girl, however old she is gay. That's their whole reason. That's the whole reason they're dropping money on that, I guarantee. Whereas, let's take a look at Valve. Now, Valve, there are things you can complain about Valve. I get it. Where is Half-Life 3? Where the fuck is it? All right, but other than
20
that,
years later, where
well,
is it?
we got Alex. Fuck off,
Yeah.
Valve. But they're making money with their Steam and their happy little doggies. However, you had another company. Who loves Half Life, and called Black Mesa, or they that's not their name, the Golden Hammer or whatever they call themselves, but it's the Black Mesa version of Half Life, right? And
Right.
they have completely remade that. It's absolutely gorgeous. Number one and two completely together. They have the whole thing done. And what did Valve say? Yeah, go for it, man. They even
Yeah,
gave them assets,
yep, I love
right?
it.
And I guarantee you, Valve's getting a cut. But
Of
Valve
course.
was like, "Yeah, dude, go for it, man." And they spent
You did all the work? Cool.
15 years doing that. Yeah, but I'm just saying, you know, same situation, different company logic, right? Valve
Yep.
was like, "Hey, you want to spend the time on it? Go ahead. We're going to get whatever cut we get. You go right ahead. We'll even help you out a little bit, right?"
Well,
And
some companies are just hard headed with that. It's like you guys are saying, like there's if you go on YouTube, there's quite a few people who have been using Unreal 4 and now Unreal 5,
oh yeah,
and they've been taking like old games. I know Nintendo saw it. The guys who I think it was this Russian guy who took Super Mario 64
hmm
and Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and he put it on Unreal 4 to show like how you could improve it. And I know Nintendo was watching it. Not just because of how bullish they are on protecting their shit, but wouldn't you know it, Super Mario Odyssey ran on Unreal.
Yep.
Like I know these people are watching it.
yeah.
So it's like you see these guys, you see the potential of it. I don't know if it's a HR thing or a executive thing. Why don't you
It's an
just call these
executive thing.
guys in
Yeah, it's an executive
and
thing. Yeah,
let them have at it, because
right.
it worked for Sega.
Sure.
It worked for Sega.
Yeah.
Sonic
No,
Mania became the best-selling Sonic game they had in over a decade because on the strength of two people. And it was a guy, I forget the guy's name. I think his name is Christian. Some dude, he was a guy out of Australia who did an HD remake of Sonic 2. And T. Lopez, the guy Christian hired to do the soundtrack for that remake. And Sonic and Sega took those two guys and said, "Here, make this game."
yeah,
And
no.
look how well it turned out.
That's right. And there are many examples of that. And any company could say, yeah, okay, we're going to get our cut, but you go ahead. And then they shut up and don't say anything and wait. When it comes out, if it's good, it's like, yeah, we saw potential in them. Right. And if it sucks, it's like, yeah, well, man, they shouldn't have done that, huh? All right. I mean, it's very simple. It's easy money. It's easy money. Axanar is a perfect freaking example. It's a movie, not a game, but still, a perfect example. For the love of Star Trek, they made the best Star Trek movie we've seen in a very long time. A
Mhm.
very long time. And Paramount lost their shit. Unbelievable, man.
Because they can't.
Yeah, because they
Because they
can't.
simply
Yeah.
can't do it. And
If
they
you
know they can't do
yeah,
it.
if you haven't
Well,
seen
where was the
Axanar, go
message?
watch it. Huh?
Because those guys just made a movie and they didn't have a message in it.
Yeah, they made a great movie. It was awesome, and it was. They showed you how to do something on a low budget too, right?
Well, another great example of this, to a certain degree, is the Halo show. Like you said, they don't have the money to be wasting on something like that, and
They
they
do
completely
not.
did. And that show is the biggest train wreck I've ever seen. It is a complete train wreck from beginning to end. I don't even understand. The only sort of redeeming quality it has is the combat scenes, but those are, sparse.
No,
Yeah, but
And
isn't Master Chief dead in that show now, and the girl's the new
yeah,
Master Chief?
yeah,
Yeah. Uh,
Cortana is basically puppeting him around like what about or not what's that?
Puppet.
Weekend at Bernie's. Like she's in the body of controlling his body with his
Yeah,
Spartan armor,
it's
his
just
Mjolnir armor.
it's just assholes. They're just
Yeah.
assholes. And you see this happening all over the place. It's just absolutely that bastardization and hate. But that's not really what we're talking about. We're not talking about that. We're talking about
Thank
corporate
God.
greed versus smart money making.
Well, I think we are though, because I think it's the same problem. Their own ego is what causes them to do that, right? They genuinely think that they're better than the fan base. They genuinely think that they're better than all of it, so they can make better. And you're some kind of bigot or phobe or ist if you don't like it, or an incel if you think that this is bad, even though it's, I mean, as close to objectively bad as you could possibly make something. Um,
I find it funny that insults become an insult for like not liking a show. Oh, you don't like our show? Guess you don't get pussy. Like, the fuck does
Well,
that have to do with anything?
yeah, and it doesn't apply universally, obviously.
no,
I
Uh,
just think
no,
it's just like
but
stupid though.
that's the point, though. It's they've become these guys have become so full of themselves and so out of touch with reality. Not just to mention that their audience. Rule one should be make something that the audience will like. I know that's crazy to even have to say that out loud, but that's rule one when you're making an entertainment product that especially already has a built-in audience. Make the thing that they will like. If they like it, they are much more likely to evangelize it for you. But
yeah,
because
that's right.
they they refuse to do that for whatever reason. You can say it's politics, you can say it's ego, it doesn't matter why. The blame game is largely immaterial. They simply refuse to do it because they have all the excuses, and I do think it's just an excuse that they're chasing a broader audience, whatever that means. Your audience doesn't get much broader than Halo. It does not
Yeah,
get much
no,
broader than that.
that's millions built in right there. Yeah, no, it's true.
Halo has made about $11 billion since its inception as a franchise, just on video game sales alone.
Yep. Mega hit. But we see it across the board, especially with the Halo. We're talking about the feminization of Master Chief. We see it
Yep.
everywhere. You have Captain America's been done that way. Vision's been done that way. Loki's been done that way. Moon Knight's been done that way. We have a sniveling, effeminate Moon Knight running around that has to be saved by Supergirl. And Supergirl
Yep.
comes in and saves the day, you see, even though it's called Moon Knight.
Yeah. The other thing that they
Why
seem
did
to
you bring
be.
up Moon Knight? What did you do that for then?
Yeah, I didn't. The other thing that you notice is they're terrified of stoic men. Every character, because Master Chief, he's very stoic. He doesn't get
He
emotional. He
is.
doesn't have emotional outbursts, or if he does, it's very rare. He doesn't lose his temper. He doesn't even really have a temper. Like, he's a very stoic character. They clearly have, either it's because of their own incompetence or whatever, they have a problem with stoicism as a character trait, because they, every time that they have one of these characters that is supposed to be stoic, they write them the opposite.
Right. Well, and Master Chief's supposed to be that way because you're trying to get the character out of the way because it's you, right?
That's right. Correct.
And that's why he's so stoic.
He's a myth. Chief is a myth. He's a legend. He's a Greek hero to the people of that world. He's not a person. We don't want him, to you as the player, he's not a person. You don't want him to be a person.
Right.
You want him to be a badass that you get to play as. That's what you want him to be.
It's true.
Ah.
And it's like, a lot of people don't understand Warhammer, right? Warhammer is another good example. When you're playing a space marine, that's not a space marine like you would see
That's right.
in Above and Beyond or something like that, right? That
Right.
is a giant mega god, pseudo god killing machine, right?
Right.
It's not a space marine. It's something different. And Master Chief is way beyond the concept of a Spartan, right? But
Right.
they don't understand that. They don't understand that. Anyway, let's move on to the last story. Is Ben back yet?
He's not. He
Oh,
must
well.
have fell asleep with his chillins.
While driving. Nice.
Yeah, this is a crazy story. Xbox outsells PlayStation for first time in Japan since 2014. Xbox Series S trumps PlayStation 5 in weekly charts. Now, part of this is probably due. I don't know if about in Japan if you're having trouble, but I know here getting a PlayStation 5 is like pulling teeth. Um,
Yeah,
I think that's a part of it, but that's still
that's not a problem here
oof,
though. Yeah, and
oof.
Grimlock, if you could do me a favor and stop stroking your pussy, please.
No, that's my
I think
cat.
mine.
I'll mute myself.
I knew it was you, but I wanted to blame Grimlock because I thought it was funnier. Yeah, but anyway, but I
So
think that
many ways I could have went with that.
yeah, it's true, right? But here's the thing. Um, this is epic, actually, because you can buy a PlayStation 5 here quite easily. There are no limitations whatsoever. There's plenty of them. And Xbox has never sold worth anything in Japan,
No,
ever.
even and that's funny because that includes the 360, where Microsoft, if I remember right, put a lot of money in R&D in Japan specifically to make the 360 more appealing to the Japanese,
Right.
and it still failed massively.
It did. And, and,
And
and the
and
reason why,
Xbox One sales was almost non-existent.
that's true. And the reason why is because the Japanese are racist. If it's
No,
not
that's
made in
what it is.
Japan, they really don't want it. They're very, very,
Yeah,
very
I,
nationalistic in that way, and fair enough.
I've heard that. There's a phrase. I keep forgetting. I've heard the phrase said a bunch of times before, but it basically translates to "not from here."
Xenophobia,
Well, no, it was like well, I know that, but I mean, it's an actual Japanese saying that I heard. I just
Gai
don't remember what
Kokujin,
it is. That's what I mean.
yeah,
Not from here.
foreigners,
Cool.
foreign things. But yeah, no, the Japanese are very much like that. Taxes are way higher on everything because they want Japanese to buy Japanese stuff so they can keep their country successful and homogenous. I get it. I get it. It's not America. America is a unique thing, right? But nevertheless, now the sales are way, way down on consoles anyway in Japan. So don't let this headline fool you. These are the lower numbers are way lower than they would have been with PlayStation 3, for instance, because the Japanese have moved on away from video games actually, which is strange because Korea and China they're way up for video games, particularly open world stuff. But the Japanese have moved away and they have become a YouTube generation. Everything is YouTube all the time. And the games that they play are mainly little things like Minecraft, Animal Crossing, and Fortnite. Those are the big, big games, and they're kids doing it. The high school
Yeah.
kids aren't playing video games right now. They're not. They're all into the YouTube and their various stuff. Okay, fine. So the numbers are
Well,
much lower anyway. But the fact that Xbox would even in that situation outsell PlayStation is shocking.
well, I got a question for you with that, because I think you probably know better. One thing that has been kind of I noticed the thing, at least with Sony, is that they had this turn like not long after the PlayStation 4, where they went. I don't know if out of their way is the right word, but they definitely went to cater to more of these Western audiences and these gaming journalists. And I noticed, and everybody's noticed it, to where they even moved one of their headquarters to San Diego. Do you think that has anything to do with it, or is it just a generational thing, where they're
I
just not catering to the Japanese audience anymore, and the Japanese are like, "Well, fuck it, we got other things we can do."
Well, there is something to that. The Americanization of Sony is certainly an aspect. Another aspect is, I think, the big problem with PlayStation in general. There's two. One, Xbox has kind of always been a better machine, even though public opinion may differ. It's always been better, right? It's like way back in the day, if you wanted to, you're going
Ooh,
to
you're
pick the
starting to fight now.
I'm just telling you, mechanically, if you want to compare Xbox One to the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation One, the Sega Saturn was a better machine. but where is it now?
Yeah.
Right? So that
Yeah.
doesn't really matter, right? But the second problem you have is content. PlayStation, what do they got? PlayStation 5, what do they got? What do they got? There's just not a lot of stuff out there, dude. And this is a problem. And here's the thing: Japanese are not going to play some lesbian adventure into S&M violence called Last of Us 2. They don't give a shit about that, and they're not interested. They have a very specific aesthetic that they like. And trust me, there are a lot of games made here in Japan that you never see, that never leave this country. There's a lot,
Yeah.
and they're always following that aesthetic. But I think PlayStation is having a problem with just not enough stuff coming out because they've become too snooty. Where Xbox was being snooty, and they're like, hey, guys, we need to open up, and therefore they've allowed a lot of titles just to drop on top of them, and therefore that's the popularity. But if you look at this breakdown, and you look at what's being sold in a single month here, these are abysmal, right? If you look at some of these numbers, but however, look at the Switch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Switch is killing
Look
it.
at it.
Nintendo is absolutely the undisputed king of console gaming,
Yep. And
and
Well, see,
why?
that's
it's
the other
not even
thing.
close.
That's the other thing I was going to ask you, because I know like a lot of people talk about how Japan, as terms of size, a lot of things they, the preference for uh things you could just pick up and go with, and nobody's doing that better than the Switch right now.
Mhm.
And plus the fact that I would say that they're one of the things that's really killing it with the Switch right now is that a lot of the games that for years, even here in America, you would never see but through the Japanese, are now being released worldwide. Where Nintendo's like, okay, people want it, let them have it, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's
It is. They're open themselves up to anything that's available because you know what? We can make money on it. But if you look at this breakdown, it's a single month breakdown. You're looking at near 70,000 Switches have been sold compared to 2,400 PS5s, right?
Yep.
And this 6,000 Xbox Series, right? Units for the Xbox Series S. So a PS4 has sold 22 freaking units. 22, right? So I mean, it's showing a change in demographic. I see kids all the time with a Switch in their hand. It's the
yeah,
new
and
TV. Because keep in mind with the Switch, not only can they play a game, they can watch YouTube.
yeah, and they just added Netflix and Hulu up there, so
Yeah.
and Twitch. They finally added Twitch up there.
Or did they? I
So
would imagine that would have
yeah,
been day one. But
no,
yeah, but I mean, it is really, really shocking. Switch is still Nintendo owns the market, but the fact that PlayStation 5 is selling so few, and here's a very interesting thing. Now, you guys, I'm historically minded, and I look at everything through a historical lens, right? Anytime I'm talking with someone in some different language or something like that, and they'll come up with a word that I don't know 100%, I'll ask, what does it mean, right? And they're like, oh, it means what it means. And I say, yeah, but what does it mean? How does it break down? How did it become? What is the etymology of the word? No one knows, of course. Then I have to go do research because my brain's like that. I pause and I have to go on the internet and find out what the hell it means. But being a person like that, I have been watching Sony for decades and paying attention to what's going on with Sony. And back in the day when I was a young person, Sony was one of the biggest, if not at the time, one of the biggest companies on earth. A
no,
Yep.
mega smash hit company. Just money hand over fist, just owning it. To this day, even though you can't get many Sony electronics anymore, still the best TV you can buy is a Sony. And there's no argument. The best TV you can buy. It's a little more expensive, but if you want the best TV, buy Sony. It's still that way. However, when I in Japan today, I actually had a conversation half a year ago, or maybe a year ago now, in one of the university classes, right? And I got a whole bunch of university age kids sitting here, right? I mean, that what's in that nighttime class? Shit, 100 kids, 80 kids, something like that. 'Cause that's it. That's my anthropology 101 class that I do. Because I run nighttime classes at university for kids that don't have time to do something during the day, or they want an extra credit kid. So the classes tend to be pretty big, actually, except for the cuneiform. That's always small. But whatever. And I had a kind of a conversation that got into about Sony, and all those kids, I asked them about Sony, and they were like, they had no idea. They didn't. What, Sony? Sony. I said, yeah, like your PlayStation. Oh yeah, PlayStation. So they didn't even relate the word Sony. These are Japanese kids, by the way. They didn't even
Damn.
relate the name Sony to PlayStation. Now that I thought that was interesting. So on my Wednesday night classes, which I run the adult English classes in the city over the mountain from me, I asked these. Now this is not a university kids; these are adults, older people actually, because there's a huge gap between what age groups are interested in studying English and which aren't. But nevertheless, these are a bunch of older people, and they're my age or older, right? And you got a bunch of old people in the class, and I asked them about Sony, and they just didn't really have an opinion. They were like, "Oh well, Sony, well, Sony." And it shocked me, dude, because you're talking about one of the biggest companies in history came out of nowhere, an amazing story. Go read the history of Sony. It's a pretty cool story, dude. Like the story of Honda
Yeah.
or the story of Mercedes Benz. Go read those stories. They're interesting how those people found success. And it's got to the point that the Japanese are apathetic to it. And I don't understand how that's even possible, especially if you look at this country. What made this country? Toyota, Honda, Panasonic, and Sony. That's what made this country, dude. That's what made them successful and made them the second richest economy on the planet. But yet they're apathetic about Sony. How did that happen, dude?
Don't know.
Sorry for the
Sounds
rant.
like some subversion to me.
Something.
And it's also Sony kind of shooting themselves in the foot with the really dumb decisions they've been making for the last 20 or so years. You can't. Eventually, the chickens come home to roost. You can't just keep making the wrong choice and
No.
pretending like it's okay. And they have continuously made the wrong choice.
Well, if I asked a simple question to everybody here, which company do you consider more woke? Sony PlayStation or Xbox Entertainment?
Oh, Sony, definitely.
Way, way, way,
Easily.
way more easily Sony.
Yeah.
Way more. Yeah.
Which is crazy because they're a Japanese company and Xbox is an American company.
But as you mentioned, they moved their headquarters to Pasadena.
And look at that. Listen. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. When you dabble in things that your audience does not care about or want, the reaction is an overwhelming nothing. You get nothing from them. You don't get their attention. You don't get their money. You don't get clout from them. And once you've lost that, you've lost. That's it. That's game over. That's the game you're playing when you're one of these companies, when you're one of these huge transnational corporations. Is the money is less important. The money is a side effect. It's a symptom. What you need and what you want is their attention. And if you got the people's attention in a good way, and sometimes even in a bad way, if you've got the people's attention, the money will come. Money will come right after that. Right. Eric Bischoff, the old WCW executive, who beat Vince McMahon for 83 weeks, and he's very proud of that fact. He wrote a book called Controversy Creates Cash, and he's correct.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not because controversy itself creates cash, it's because attention creates cash.
Sure.
When you can get that attention, it's priceless. I mean, they spend trillions of dollars every so often, whatever it is, in advertising all over the world, in marketing, just because they want your attention. That's it. That's all they want is your attention. Your attention is that valuable, and when you do things like what Sony's been doing for a very long time, and it's not even just like leftist politics, just stupid decisions and lefty politics, promoting it and pushing it, you lose.
Yeah.
And we see it all. We were just talking about Netflix. Netflix doing it too. And guess what? They lost huge. Disney losing huge. Like, just there's a consequence to these actions. And that consequence is an unrequited, just or not unrequited, but unbridled meh.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Like
yeah.
Star Wars is the best example of that specifically, and then I'll be done. Everybody in here, well, I don't know about Grimlock, I think he was, but everybody else was a big Star Wars fan. We all love Star Wars, big fans of it. And now we're all just like, yeah,
Done.
or we're like, what? They did what? We find it hilarious because it's absurd.
Because it's absurd. Yeah.
Like I wasn't like a mega fan, but like I loved the movies. I read quite a few of the books. I generally enjoyed it, and yeah, the prequels were not good, but at least the prequels had like parts that was cool, like parts that you could at least talk about with your friends. It's like, yeah, that part sucked, but what about that part? That part was awesome. There was nothing there with Disney, and it's this and the constant adoption of this philosophy. Well, if you don't like it, it's because you're a shitty person. That doesn't work. It's never
Yes.
worked, and I wish people would understand that. Especially when I get into these arguments with people about this stuff, it doesn't work, and I always you know go back to the argument of the Transformers movie where fans, and we're talking about kids, basically kids, forced Hasbro to give them Optimus Prime back
Yep.
after they took it away
Yep.
because Hasbro grossly underestimated how much he was beloved.
That was a
But
shocking
one thing
moment.
but nobody at Hasbro said, "Well, if you don't like Rodimus, it's because you're shit."
No, not at all. Yeah, because the customer's always right. But no, that's a
Yeah,
good point. Another problem you have with Sony in particular, though, is the Bucho. Now, the Bucho means like executive, right? And it's very similar
yeah,
to what Thundera was talking about earlier with a tenured professor in the conversation we had earlier. And I'll give you an example. About 15 years ago, here in this area, some big university in Japan, I think it was Todai, had sent an archaeological team out to an area here, and the area had some pretty ancient stuff, over more than 2,000 years old, and they were doing archaeological digs. Right, and there was anthropologists and all that. All the different trades were involved, right? And because who I am and the connections I have, I was actually approached and contacted, and I went out to the site many times and talked to them and interacted with them and stuff like that. And it was pretty fun. Unfortunately, they didn't have the funding to go more than 5 years, which is a shame because there's probably a lifetime's worth of work out there for an anthropologist, but how archaeologist. However, when I was on site, I was kind of looking at I was up on a mountain top, and I was looking at the valley that they were working in, and because it's in archaeology, it's kind of good to get a bird's eye view if you can. Drones are very useful in that these days, by the way. But
Mm.
up on the mountain, seeing into the valley, and it lets you get a look at a couple things. It lets you see the flow of the geology, but it also allows you to see the flow of animals and people, right? How would things interact with the environment? And therefore, it helps you to kind of decide where you want to look because when you put a hole in the ground, it costs money and time, right? So you have
Yeah.
to be very precise when you're doing those things. So that kind of vantage point is very useful. And I'm sitting here looking at it, and I pointed out several features in the landscape that were clearly man-made to me, right? And I was asking, it was like, you guys go to dig into those mounds? And they're like, "Oh, why would we dig into a natural formation?" I was like, those are clearly man-made. Those are not natural formations. You should put a hole in the side of that and check it out, right? Of course, they refused, which I didn't push it because it's not my project, right? But that's not the point. But the point was, it got us into a conversation where I was talking about some of the new finds at the time. Now, of course, it's confirmed science here, 15 years later. But talking about the alluvial erosions in the central aspects of North America, and how that portrays massive flooding and stuff like that. And here we have a professor from one of the big universities in Japan, right? I mean, it's a world-renowned university, and he's like, "Oh, that's nonsense." And I'm like, "Well, no, it's actually discovered geology we're talking about, not archaeology." But he wouldn't have nothing of it. Now, of course, I was 100% right at the time,
Yeah.
and I know now I was 100% right. But these guys, when they're tenured or they're buchos, where I mean they get into an executive position that they have, like sealed power, as it were. These guys are so hard headed, you can't budge them, right? And when you have a company like Sony, which is nothing but bureaucracy and buchos, this kind of nonsense happens. And they have allowed in a 20-year period for Sony to go from the mega mammoth thing it was to a meh in Japan itself. And that
Mhm.
is, I don't think I can quantify that, dude.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to watch, man, in real time. We watched it happen here. Well, I didn't watch it. It was before I was born, but the American people did if they were paying attention, especially if you were in the appliance field specifically. There's a company, Chester, I know you've heard of it. Reggie, or Grimlock's probably heard of it too. Sunbeam.
Oh yeah,
Sunbeam
sure.
Appliances. They
Sunbeam,
made
sure.
everything. Yep. They did the exact same thing. They had a ossified board or leader or lead, the executives, and they basically just drove the company into the ground over a few decades till eventually it was sold. I believe some Canadian company owns the name now, and they still put stuff out under the name, but it's not the company anymore. It's
Mm,
all made in China crap. But there was a time where Sunbeam they
huge.
were a big deal, huge. The best toaster ever made is a Sunbeam float toaster from the 50s.
Oh yeah.
Um, though they are a great example of that happening here, where
RCA.
they had the world by the tail, right? They had it, and because of a bunch of people a bunch of men got in these positions and were so stubborn, they literally drove the companies into the ground with really dumb decision making. And it's not even necessarily. I mean, this wasn't Sunbeam wasn't, but not even necessarily political decision making. Just dumb, just not adapting to the times. And I think a lot of the reason is because they are older and they haven't kept up, or they feel like they haven't kept up, so they just double down. They dig their heels in
Yeah.
and trying to resist change as much as possible because somewhere deep in their psyche, or maybe even right at the front, they understand that change isn't good for them because change means they'll get pushed aside.
Yeah, that's a problem. And that's what I guess I was getting at. And the companies that do survive, Coca-Cola, good example. They almost
Yep.
lost the entire thing with New Coke, but they listened
Yes.
and they changed. They didn't bitch at the public. They didn't say you were wrong. They just brought back classic Coke, and they
Yep.
won the cola wars, right?
Everybody knows Coke. You can go anywhere in the world. You say Coke,
Yeah.
want a Coca Cola? They know what you're talking
But
about.
they were
And I've done
near,
it
yeah, they were
all
near
over the
dead,
world.
dude. They were near dead.
Yep.
So it's just about getting these hard-headed people out of the way and listening to your customer and doing the best you can for them. And We're seeing a complete lack of that because, well, everyone's
Yes.
special now, you see, even though they
We're all
haven't earned it.
snowflakes.
We
We're
are.
all special little
Yes.
snowflakes. Wait, don't tell anybody that the reality is that 99.99999% of people will die and not matter at all.
Yeah,
But yeah, we're all special snowflakes.
it's true.
All right?
Some of us are singed on the corners, but hey, okay. Nevertheless, awesome. Thank you guys for coming in today. That was a good, fun conversation, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty lighthearted, so that's good. Tomorrow we will do comic books. I should be fine. Last week I was ready. I have a presentation already done, so that makes it easy this week. But
Yeah.
I got stuck working, dude. It's just the way it is. But I shouldn't happen again.
Shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
Shouldn't.
But hopefully we'll be here tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I do have a comic book presentation, which will be fun. And we'll get into this comic book stuff. So, guys, thank you very much. And Grimlock, you got any closing words, dude?
No, I was just agreeing with what you guys said. A lot of this is hard-headedness, stubbornness.
Mm.
For whatever reason, I think a lot of these. Another thing, I think a lot of the older executives, they get caught in their ways because they were successful. And one of the hardest things to do, I think, with a successful person is try to show them a new way to be successful when they're like, well, this worked before, why can't it work now?
Sure.
And sometimes that's the case, but a lot of the times it's the refusal to, like you said, see a new way to do something and go with it. And unfortunately, it hurts everybody else. They get the proverbial golden parachute, whereas everybody else kind of gets stuck with the fallout, and that's the part that really fucking sucks.
It does. Yeah. I mean, because like an example I gave, keep in mind, an archaeologist is basically just a historical landscaper, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's what they are. And he couldn't even bother to see the landscaping right in front of him, right?
Yeah. Staring him right in the face, smacking him in the face. Nope.
Yeah. And
Nope.
the reason for it is because he had set in his mind that the people of that era didn't have the technology to do that. But clearly
Yeah.
they did.
Yeah.
Someone
They did.
right?
Somebody did. Maybe it wasn't them, but somebody came there and did it.
Sure. Yeah.
Ah.
And yeah. And they wouldn't dig in it. And unfortunately, probably in those mounds is probably buried, chieftains or things like that. It's probably just burial mounds.
Yep.
But the for me, and keep in mind, I am a specialized philologist, right? I'm not. I've
Right.
studied archaeology, of course, but I'm not a in the field, decades of experience in the field. But for me, it was plain as could be. It was clearly man-made. Look at the flow. Look where we're there. You shouldn't have those kind of formations in that flow because that was a giant river flow that's become much smaller now, right? But whatever. I'm not going to get into it. But yes, Grimlock, you're right.
Right.
Take
It's
us out
good.
of here.
It's good to be right. I have a very easy one, Chester. It goes to about everything we've been talking about, really from the beginning of it. Because you see, Chester, the master is not the one who completes his training. The master is the one who never stops.
Oh yeah. Namaste. That is true. Later, everybody.